Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
Oh, the present. I thought it was present. Like you got to do a presentation in class.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cheap Seat Critics podcast. I am one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks, and this is the beginning of season 15. Woo! And to
Yeah,
start off,
we can't believe we made it this far either.
well, and to start off season 15, if you look up Cheap Seat Critics podcast anywhere on the interwebs, you'll find us connected to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Louise, LetterBox. We have that. We also have a visual side of things. Yes, I know it's an audio podcast, but we do have visual aid on YouTube and Rumble.
The interwebs, not Madam's Web.
No, Crimson. Not yet, anyway.
Good grief.
If you go in to watch Madam Web and expect to see us, it's sad news.
Yeah. If you go into the movie theater and you see us and you see me watching Madame Web, it's because I'm tied to a chair with duct tape over my mouth. That's because someone stopped me from going to see Dune in IMAX.
Kung Fu Panda.
So yeah, Kung Fu Panda. That's where the quote was from today. I figure we should start with histories before we go into fun facts here. Springs, why don't you start us off?
Ooh, my legendary history about my legendary viewing of this legendary movie. I've seen Kung Fu Panda maybe four or five times now for the pod. And I have not seen anything else. I've not seen 2, 3, 4's coming out. I haven't seen, and the TV show. I think there was a TV show.
Yeah, there's been a couple TV shows.
Yeah,
There's been a couple renditions of a show. Yeah.
Also don't think I have not played the video game. I think that was like a PS2 or something game. Have not played that. I have, however, played the arcade game where you have to hit the drums with your hands.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. All right. Crimson.
I finally get to match some of Sprinks' numbers and some of the recent coverages we've had. So he's like, oh, I've seen this like 10 times, dozen, 30 plus. I've seen Kung Fu Panda 8 or more times. It might have been double digits. Getting there.
Well, that
So
doesn't match with me at all.
Quite a bit. No, it might be double digits, which is why it might be matching you. 8 to 10 is probably where I'm at. And
He's saying that he's matching
high for
your
me.
usual limit
Gotcha.
for
I see.
for stuff that you have seen. Not necessarily
not
this.
one. In general, usually your picks are high viewage numbers. But for this movie in particular, I saw this in theaters when it came out with my uncle, and it was pretty cool because that was the first movie I saw with my uncle and the last one I've seen with my uncle. We don't hang out much. I've seen the TV show and I've seen the second one. I've not seen the third. Yeah, the TV show was pretty good quality.
Interesting.
And anything else? Yeah, no video games, no action figures, none of that stuff.
Well, I guess it leaves me. I've seen this movie. Oh, it's probably above 20, below 30, kind of in that range. I have seen this. I used to watch this movie a lot. It was a very big family movie. My first time seeing it, I also saw it with my cousins. And Skadoosh became an inside joke between me and one of my older cousins. So whenever we see each other, part of our greeting is the wuxi finger hold.
Nice.
Because it really, that part really cracked him up in the film, and it got me too when I was a kid, even though I didn't fully understand what the fuck was happening.
So, who started the tradition? You or your cousin?
I want to say it was him, but
So he
to
wanted
be
to
honest,
atomize you.
but to be honest, maybe. I stole his Xbox controller too often in the house. The but yeah, it might have been. It was probably both of us just kind of mutually initiating it. I have seen two. I do like two. I have seen three. Didn't like three all that much. Not that to say it was a bad movie. It was just kind of uh mediocre compared to the first two. Um, and I have played the video game, the actual PS2 game. I have very, very strong memories of going through that entire game. It was quite fun. And I have not played the arcade game. And I haven't seen anything for the TV show. So got a fairly well-rounded experience for this one, don't we, boys?
Across it, all of us, we've experienced pretty much everything Kung Fu Panda. It sounds like.
It's true, yes. Springs covered the arcade game. I covered the
It sounds like there's a lot of
development.
weight on this arcade game. It's I don't mean it to hold so much Kung Fu Panda knowledge on it.
It's part of the experience. I wonder. Uh, no, it's DreamWorks. That's not because there's a chance that Kung Fu Panda could probably end up in some fighting games. With the whole
The
like big over.
Universal fighting game?
Yeah, like there's a lot of crossover fighting games that are out now.
Maybe.
So
Oh, I guess one other experience, not personally, but with my own eyes, I saw Poe at Universal Studios,
Oh,
but I didn't get to
now
meet him.
now I'm trying to think back if I saw him because I did go to Universal Studios as well, and I think I do
so did
remember
I.
seeing him as well. I just didn't meet him. I just thought it was cool. uh, well, if that's our histories, gentlemen, shall I dive into facts?
I'm
Sure.
sure you had plenty.
I do, yes. The first one is that the animators took kung fu classes for this. Um, the voice actors and a lot of the cast behind the animation team did 6 hour classes to help them with the kung fu animation, so that way the characters can have their distinct fighting styles.
Really helped make
Uh,
it feel authentic.
yeah, it certainly did.
I didn't know
This should
Jackie
not
Chan
surprise.
needed Kung Fu skills.
Yeah, well, I think he was the
Well,
only one
he
who
needed to
didn't
learn
need.
monkey fu.
Yeah, that's true. Funny enough, since you brought him up, Jackie Chan dubbed himself in the Chinese release of the film.
Not surprised at all.
Yeah,
The dedication.
the dedication. Yeah,
Did
and
he
he's in
re-record it,
Cantonese
or
as
did they
well.
just reuse his original recording?
Uh, no, he re-recorded. So like he
Oh,
dubbed over in oh, what is it called? Uh, he voices over the character pretty much in all different languages, and I think he in Kung Fu Panda 3 also voices Poe's father in the Cantonese dub, whereas Bryan Cranston played it in the English one.
Interesting.
Yeah. Uh, Dustin Hoffman tutored Jack Black for the scene where Poe and Chief were arguing at the top of the stairway. Dustin Hoffman coached Jack Black on delivering the lines, so the scene would have better emotional impact. And considering Hoffman has 2 Academy Awards, he probably knows what he's talking about.
I would
And
agree.
he's also a perfectionist, so his contract for the film stated that he must be allowed to make additional recordings if he wasn't fully satisfied with his performance.
wow, pretty good.
Yeah. Uh, this is more of a funny one. The wishy finger hold isn't real.
What?
Boo.
I know, right?
What's next?
Such
Santa
a
Claus? What the hell? What kind of
well,
statement is that, Ryder? No, no,
Tell
no,
me,
no.
Halloween Town doesn't exist?
Boo. Get off the stage. Boo. Kids, believe it
uh,
is real.
You're ruining my childhood.
yeah. Obviously, well, this might be noticeable, but the producers studied Chinese art, and they studied Chinese traditional art, and that's kind of where you see the opening sequence in the film, kind of that the dream state where it's kind of
A legendary intro.
yeah. The folktale kind of look it has in the beginning of the film. That is inspired from traditional Chinese art. One of the producers spent several years in China, researching cultural art and martial arts cinema. So that opening sequence is a homage to all of that.
Very cool.
Hans Zimmer and Joe Powell are the people who uh, directed the soundtrack for this. They composed the soundtrack. Sorry, they composed the soundtrack for this. I think Hans Zimmer has a lot to be said for him already, but John Powell's where I know it from is from How to Train Your Dragon, and you can definitely see that their influences play off each other. And Hans Zimmer went to China and spent time with the Chinese National Symphony Orchestra, which helps pay off when composing for this film. I think there's a lot of that what you would expect, I suppose, from Chinese music or traditional music.
I mean, it's the credibility I give to Hans Zimmer for his craft as well.
Yeah, it's true. He's also really good at what he does, surprisingly.
Yeah, like in Spirit, he lived among the horses for an entire year before making the OST for that.
That a true
That's a
fact,
lie.
Crimson? Oh, okay,
That's a
thank you.
lie.
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, that's kind of what I narrowed it down to for this one, as far as interesting facts are concerned. But I'd figured I'd open the floor to either of you who might have potential facts to add, considering the long history that we all apparently had with this film.
Well, the film came
Jack
out in
Black sang the outro credits song.
parts of it.
Yeah.
Parts of it, yes.
Uh,
Everybody was kung fu
I mean,
fighting.
2008 was a good year of movies. I'll say that.
That's true. We got The Dark Knight. We got Iron Man. Uh, it
Kung
was a
Fu
very good
Panda.
year. Yeah, Kung Fu
Some
Panda.
other
I
things.
assumed it needed to be. I assumed that one needed to be stated because you brought it up specifically in this podcast.
Yeah, it'd be real weird if I just said that year and had no correlation to Kung Fu Panda.
Was it 2008? That we
1995 was great.
was 2008 also James Cameron's Avatar?
It was
Was
2009.
that was 2009? All right. I knew it was one of those two. Yeah, it was a good year for movies. um. But if that's it for facts, gentlemen, I think we can dive right into the meat of this film. Uh, we're going with a popcorn structure. Uh, this film, while it is on the shorter end, is very, very dense as well. So, why don't you start us off, Crimson?
Before he does, I
Okay.
actually have one other
Oh,
kind of fact
Okay.
thing.
all right.
I don't know how true it is. Is it? And Ryder, I guess is kind of aimed to you if for your knowledge on it. Is it more than a theory that every villain of the three Kung Fu Panda movies target a different um, ability of Poe, like his strength, mentality, spirituality?
Um, that is a through line. Yes, I would say the first two movies are stronger in that sense than the third one. The third one kind of felt um, tacked on, but they at least try to adhere to that idea and concept. I'll say that.
Okay. I didn't know how much weight that had.
Um, yeah, it's yes, that's that is what their goal is ultimately. I think so that wouldn't that's not out of the realm from what I've seen of the films.
All right. I will make my point. Well, I'll bring it up in the beginning because I know I'll forget to bring it up later. It's a Glinda Tin Man scenario
Oh
with
no!
Oogway.
Uh,
Oogway is a bad guy in this, flat out.
Please proceed.
So he has a vision of Tai Lung escaping, and him saying this vision prophesizes it into existence. It makes Shifu panic, send out Zine or whatever the
Zane.
bird's name was,
yeah.
Zane, and so on and so forth. We know how he gets out. So he orchestrated the beginning. He knocked the domino. And like, okay, that's fine. Maybe he didn't see clearly in his vision that he would knock the dominoes. But a later line, I'm like, well, that just confirms it. Uh, During the Furious Five coronation thing for the Dragon Warrior, whatever the event was called, Shifu said to Uguay, "It is a historic day, isn't it, Master Uguay?" And Uguay said, "Yes, and one I feared I would not live to see." So he set up this whole Tai Lung release so the Dragon Warrior could come into existence while he's alive.
Hmm.
And who's
I
this
can see
Tin
that as
Man?
an interpretation.
Well, he doesn't have a sidekick. I was just saying that
Okay.
an
He's just the
alternate view.
mastermind. He's just
Yeah,
the mastermind. Yeah.
because we got the motive. He wanted to see the Dragon Warrior before he died, and then we have the setup of the dominoes, orchestrated by him prophesizing with his vision.
Hmm. Okay. I can't call him a villain in this scenario. He's an antagonist because he doesn't want the
All those
valley to be
rhinos
destroyed.
died because of it. People
He doesn't
died
want.
because of this decision.
Yeah, that's true. But he didn't want the valley to be destroyed ultimately.
He just dipped. He could have helped.
Oh, well, he he died. I don't think he could avert that.
Crimson is a good theory. It's, to me, not as strong as your Glenda the quote unquote good witch theory.
Yeah,
That's up there.
yeah.
This is
The Glenn. This is a mid tier theory. I like it, but it's not as high. It's not as strongly supported. I think as your as the insane Wizard of Oz ending.
Man, I thought this had legs.
It's
I'm
got some.
I'm trying to think
It's
with the,
not. It's not running, but it's crawling.
yeah, with the prophecy domino affecting by being stated aloud to cause Zane to go, and that releases Tylon. I feel the prophecy could still be true and Tylon can escape without the use of Zane. It would have just been orchestrated differently.
Well, Uguay even tells him one often meets his destiny on the road it takes to avoid it. So he predicted that Shifu would cause this problem.
Yeah,
It wasn't,
Shifu could have
oh,
done
it
something
just happened
else.
to happen. He knew this is what would have gotten Tylon released. This was it.
Well, this is it, as in the use of Zane, or this is it by something Shifu does. Because Shifu could have done a multitude of different actions that could have released Tylon.
Well, he had a vision of this. We don't get details of the vision, but seeing Shifu panicking and sending Zane could be part of his vision.
That's the domino of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm trying to
so
think like if
he
Shifu,
set up and knocked the dominoes
but
down.
if Shifu sent like a letter instead, or went on his own to the prison to double the guards, and what if they did double
Well,
the
then
guards?
Tai Lung wouldn't have escaped then if he just sent a letter.
So your
Then
your
the prophecy
theory
would have happened.
here, your prediction is it only would have been done with Zane to match the
Because
vision of
that's
the
what
theory.
happened. That's destiny. That's the events that
Okay,
transpired.
so you see Destiny as the events of what we saw, not Destiny as it would rule itself out in any form at all. Like, what if Shifu just killed Zane right there? Like, Shifu saw so past it of like the variables of what could happen if Zane was sent that he didn't send Zane for that
Well,
fact.
that's not destiny anymore. I mean, destiny's like a predetermined. I mean, there's different views on destiny, but it's like things happen
Yeah,
and they're kind of set
I
in
thought it
the
was a game
direction
about a
it's
ball
going.
like hanging above the earth or something. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, something like that.
there's a
Uh,
tower somewhere.
but if you can just say what if, then it's not really destiny anymore.
Well, no,
So
but it was
she could have
just.
killed him, but that's not what was destined to happen. So I'm going to say no to it
Well, I don't think
because
the
that's not what we
destined of
got.
what happened was Uguay didn't say Zane had to go to deliver a message. It was just Tylon will escape. It didn't show us the vision of what Uguay saw. He didn't go into more detail on what the vision was or explaining this destiny that was going to occur. So I'm saying it could be anything that could have happened. Like doubling the guards with two on a bridge could have been too tight. One of them dropped their weapons. They're like, we'll get another one. The weapon drops, splinters. A splinter gets to Tylon, and that's what he uses instead of a feather. It's like it could have been any variable of difference to still get the prophecy destined.
We don't have anything like that in the entire movie or the second one for that matter. Like a failed attempt and then the universe, like Final Destination, like you can avoid something, but then it just happens anyways. We don't get any of that in here.
No, because Zane was
So
sent.
I'm not going to assume because the prophecy did fulfill itself that it would have fulfilled itself no matter what, because we didn't have any people trying to change destiny other than sending Zane, which is what caused it in the first place.
Okay. Well,
Also, yeah, I mean, and Ugoe pointing out the avoiding one's destiny thing implies that he knows that Shifu's actions, whether it be a letter or sending Zane, Shifu's actions is what causes the problem. Because otherwise, he wouldn't have said that to him.
that's true. That I can get behind.
So, yeah, I think he prophesizes Zane and everything because he can predict that Shifu is his reaction is what causes it.
Nah, it's a crawling theory.
A flying animal's faster than sending mail.
Oh, that's a question I'll bring up. I don't know. Well, this is popcorn. I could bring up that question. Just how
Cool.
freaking fast Zane was flying.
Uh,
Or if Tylon was taking a
faster the
scenic
second
route.
time, as far as I understand.
Yeah, it shows Tylon like booking it across bridges or anything. So I don't think he's walking and smelling the daisies.
Yeah, but he's got mountains to climb over and stuff like that. So he takes his time, but at least they. It's true that the Zane would fly farther and faster than Tai could run. Mostly. The magic system for Kung Fu Panda is pretty light, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah, we don't know if he had to cross a ravine with no bridge and had to build a bridge himself. Who
It
knows?
does a good job of keeping that his side of stuff pretty vague. Our only interaction with Tai Lung after he gets out of the prison is when the five meet up with him to try and stop him.
That's true. We also, I mean, in any case, we don't really know the time. I mean, we kind of do. It's like a day. I'm trying to think like the time of Zane being sent out to the prison, how long that timeline is, and then for him to return. But then again, those could be separate times and not chronological to what we're seeing with Poe and the Fierce Five and Shifu and whatnot.
Yeah. Um, if I'm gonna orchestrate a timeline in my head, it feels like Zane went out there and we just stayed out there for like a week and a half or something like that, pretty much. And then the whole explosion stuff happened. Then he flew back within a couple days. So it feels like the flight was more than a day, pretty much.
Okay. I find the actions of everything in the prison to be back to back for the cut. Because Zane was there and then he's like, I want to leave. I don't think he stayed a week just being around. Like, he's like, I want to be
Oh,
out
he's
here.
talking
And
the
they just,
travel.
oh, the
Travel
travel
took
to
a
get
week.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
Is yeah, I never viewed the travel in this being a day for any of the characters that end up traveling. The five, Tai Lung, Zine, Zake, whatever we said. I forget his name already.
Zane.
The bird, Zane.
I think we're
Um,
the only three people in the world who have talked about Zane this much.
That's
yeah,
true. um, yeah, I
and
mean,
I was trying to pay attention on how to keep a timeline here because that has been a thing I've always had issues with this movie is the timeline. Uh, and the only thing I could really get towards any time passing is during the montage of Poe training. It's green, and then by the end, the trees are red. And then when the five meet Tai Lung, which is right after the montage, I think, uh, then the trees are green, and then they come back to the temple, and the trees are green. So I don't know if months have gone by for the trees to change, or if it was just different types of trees. I don't know.
well,
I
to
couldn't
be
find anything
fair,
concrete.
this is supposed to take place in China. China's a really big country, so
Yeah, bamboo leaves, I think, only remain green.
Oh, there
yeah.
were non-bamboo vegetation there.
I know there's some in the
Well,
The
village, but
the trees where the five meet Tai Lung at the bridge were not bamboo. Those were green. There was a forest by the uh, what was it, the pool of tears or whatever, pool of sacred tears,
yeah.
uh, that had bamboo trees and other trees. That's all I could find on a timeline is potentially see a season went by, and that would help with the montage length for me as well, if that much time had passed.
all right. Yeah. I wasn't looking at trees, admittedly. So, but yeah, that does help with the timeline for sure. It might have been that made multiple trips out there. Then, if we're sticking to the fact that Spring said that Zane wouldn't want to stay out there in the prison, even for a night to rest.
No, I think when Zane went to deliver the message to begin with, and went down to see Tylon and the guard, I don't know, remember the Rhino guard's name, Michael Clark Duncan. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Was like, oh yeah, he's all fine, stepping on his tail, and they went back up, and then it shows like Tylon's eyes, and then fades back to the temple, and we have a whole new scene before going back to the prison. I think when it goes back to the prison, it's maybe a minute has passed.
Um,
Because Zane still wants to get out of there.
if that's true, I would have more issues with Tai Lung's escape.
I
I
do have
can
a couple issues with this escape if
Yeah,
we're talking about
I
speed.
do have a couple issues with this escape too. I think there's a couple things that bother me, but I guess we'll go to that next in a second. But I guess if for me, I can buy that Zane would stay at the prison because he needs to rest, at least for a day, because he just flew all that way. So I can buy that him, even if he doesn't like being there, he can hole himself up and sleep for a certain amount of time to go back. And then Tai Lung just breaks free before he's done resting, pretty much.
Just, I don't see anything that supports that as something that happens.
That?
I'm with Sprinks where it all seems while at the prison it all happens in one go to me.
Uh, okay, so the issues you have is Zane wouldn't want to stay a day, pretty much.
I don't think there's a day
And
shown.
not at the prison. I mean, he could have flown to a nearby village and rested there or something, but he was terrified of
That
being in
looks
that
pretty
place.
remote. There wasn't really anything to show that there was a nearby village either.
Mm. No, but he was
For the
bound to
record,
have
they do
passed him
have
at
guest.
some point.
For the record, they do have guest places in prisons.
Yeah, I know. But whether or not he would have, I don't know. We don't get
I don't
dialogue
think.
that
I don't.
says he
He,
would or a
yeah, there's nothing that says he wouldn't
time
either,
of
though. I
anything.
agree that he is like
I mean,
my thing is he was exhausted. I agree he doesn't like the place at all. He wants to leave, but he would still need to rest because he just flew all that way.
yeah, I don't think he needs a village to rest either. Like he can just sit down on top of a mountain, give himself five
Oh,
minutes, and then
he's
continue.
oh no, I wouldn't say that
I'm just saying it
because
doesn't
I
need
do
to be
think he would
thought.
need sleep.
Okay, I'm like it doesn't need to be thought that he continually flew all the way from the temple to the prison without stopping, or vice versa.
I think he would have tried to fly there all the way without stopping, uh, because he was full stamina at that point, well rested and everything, presumably before Shifu sent him off on his mission.
That's true. When he got to the prison, he seemed fine. He was a little nervous, of course, but he wasn't out of breath. When he got back to the temple and came in
No,
to
no,
disturb Shifu, he was out of breath.
no. He was out of breath when he got to the prison. He
Like,
crashed on the ground.
Oh, you're right.
and the Shifu when he it was not just exhaustion, it was anxiety as well.
Yeah. Um, that being said, like this is not a major issue. Like I'm fine with the prison break happens back to back in one scene, but I'm just saying I interpreted it as time had passed, whether it be a day or a few days. It's up to interpretation.
I mean, I agree with you there. Time has passed, but I see it as a minute.
Yeah, my yeah, I see the prison itself. My thing is just how long it takes for them to get to the prison, because I don't want it to be a day. I think that would not be good.
Yeah,
Uh,
I assume it took him a week to get out there. But again, it's not fully clear on the time stuff. I don't think the film necessarily needed to be for its. I think it's well paced without it, but it's a factor because if it took him a day to get out there, then Tai Lung took a very long time to get back.
yeah, and why did Crane and the Five beat him there as well? We're talking timeline.
You mean to the
Uh,
bridge?
no, when they're paralyzed, he flew the Five back and beat Tai Lung there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
they get a lot of leeway in the sense that the flyers can outrun the people on the ground. That's pretty much what they're relying on for a lot of this.
Yeah, carrying hundreds of pounds.
Yeah,
It's pretty
I
horrible,
agree.
exhausted.
rough terrain. I mean, that's what it's kind of just demonstrating between Zane and Crane getting back to the temple versus Tylon.
And yeah, and Crane didn't get paralyzed, which I was a detail I liked, but we'll get to that. Do we want to talk about the prison break? Because since we're on around the subject,
We can, even though it's a prison, it's a huge cell. I mean, they only have one prisoner.
that's
It's
true.
made specifically just for Tylon, or to hold him.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty darn cool and pretty good prison overall in general. One of my issues being the dynamite on the stalactites instead of the bridge. uh, Makes
I
no
think
sense at all.
uh, I actually don't have any issues with the dynamite because I assume the dynamite was just to collapse the prison on top of them. But yeah, I get the necessity of one. Your point of like why wouldn't they do it on the bridges as well?
Do you
Yeah,
think the
because
stalagmites would have done more overall damage to the bridges and everything down below than just one bridge?
Well,
I
they're
mean they
collapsing the
probably
prison.
would. Yeah,
Yeah. The point is that they're collapsing the prison around them.
and it's a contingency to keep him from escaping, but destroying the bridge without the stalactites would have stopped him. Stalactites saved him unnecessarily. Not that they could have predicted him running up them, but my first thought, if I was like, okay, we got to destroy his chances of escape, wouldn't be, oh, stalactites. It's we should blow the bridges, which is what the whole chain elevator thing is, so they can break it, so there's no way up. The bridges would be destroyed, so there's no way across. So it's the same kind of thought process.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
I
I have my own issues. Sorry, you finished.
I was just gonna say with what Crimson's saying, I think it would have just been both then. Like just for the safety of it, have dynamite on the stalagmites and the bridge.
It might have been, yeah, like I said, there's workarounds for this, but there would have to be lines of dialogue for it, and obviously this is a very very dense script, so that's sort of stuff would get left to the wayside. Like they could have made the excuse like, yeah, we did both. Yeah, well, we can't do the bridge because if he's escaped, then we have to assume the worst that he's going to get to the door. Um, so there was workarounds for why they only dynamited the stalactites, but none of them are in the film. Uh, as for the prison escape itself, in terms of what it's accomplishing, it very much establishes Tai Lung's presence in the film of like why everyone's so afraid of him because he essentially escapes from prison with 1,000 guards. He's very smart about it. He's very skillful about the whole thing. It pretty much gives us his prowess so that we know kind of the level of threat he is. Because the reason for the prison as a tool in terms of writing is to establish Tai Lung's um, level of skill I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah. Do you find it an issue at all that the crossbows aren't trained on him at all times?
I wouldn't
Um,
call it an issue, no, because that would just
mm,
be taxing on the arms to always be focusing on him. I
mm,
think they just need people watching him, and then they can alert. If they had nobody watching, then I'd have an issue.
yeah. I think my issue with crossbows is they aren't aimed properly usually because I figure like that's their one job, you know. Um, I do consider the crossbow shots missing a bit of horrible luck, though he's not immobilized at that point, so I don't know the level of like how how good their aim was to their precision or whatever.
Well, yeah, Springs. Were you talking about the big crossbows or the rain of arrows
Oh, the
with
big one.
the
I
elevator?
both is a situation for me, but I meant the big ones because when they get to the ground floor and the Rhino and Zane get off, then they like aim the crossbows, and then when they get back on the elevator to go up, the crossbows get taken off of him because when Tylon breaks out, then they aim the crossbows a second time.
Yes. The reason for that in world would be that just wear and tear on the string for the crossbows.
Oh, okay.
Well, ballistas in this case, they use the wrong term, but they're big crossbows, so I'm fine with it. But
Just keep it loaded at all times.
yeah,
It's
it
why you
causes
don't have a Nerf gun cocked at all times because it ruins the spring.
yeah, in the same way that it will ruin the string for your crossbows and stuff like that. That's why you get a lot of stuff in medieval fantasy and other medieval related things about having to restring bows and that sort of thing. Because the more you do that, the more you add tension to the string, the more it
Wear and
wears
tear.
down the string. Yeah. So that's the reason. That would be the assumption as to why they don't keep them on him at all times is because it would just be wear and tear on without need because he's immobilized. And obviously, they would armor it the fuck up when someone's going over to visit him, which they do, which is a little bit of a nice detail. Um, I I had a little bit of an issue. The issue of me, the reason I also prefer that Zane was there for longer than a day is because I'd rather Tai Lung have that time as practice, essentially, to unlock that turtle shell behind him. That's kind of keeping him immobilized.
That is a good detail I like. That the turtle shell is holding him in place, which connects to Uguay.
Yeah, it connects to Uguay, and also the presumably all the little spikes that are in the metal tubes in the turtle shell are like in his pressure points.
Yeah, I figured as much.
So it's a very cool way to keep him mobilized. Um, like I said, again the reason I prefer Zane having been there for a while is I like the idea that Tai Lung practiced with the feather to get it to till he found like till he was sure of the right combination more or less. Though it's not necessarily needed for that
That also,
because he could also have figured it out at some point.
yeah, that also brings up that his tail was not nerve dampened by a point.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's because his tail wasn't considered a weapon, but we can definitely see he has very articulate control over his tail.
Yeah. Which also goes into when the rhino steps on it, he totally does feel that.
He didn't break any bones. Rhinos are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially coated in armor.
I mean,
Um.
that's kind of the obvious thing of why isn't he in a cage as well? He's in an open pit, and they decided to shackle him with rocks and the nerf thing. Why not put him in a cage as well?
I don't know.
Because
They just see the
they
whole
could have
prison as a
that and
cage.
the cage. So.
Yeah. I honestly I actually think that would work better because if I were to fix the scene, I would put him in a cage, and it would be a food delivery because they're obviously keeping him alive. Uh, because I have to headcanon the reason the elevator is on the floor with the crossbows instead of pulled all the way up is because it was delivering a change of guard shifts, which is a fine and reasonable inference to make. But I would have preferred like we followed guards down on the elevator to deliver their food, and he orchestrates his escape when they're inside his cell, pretty much. So they've already opened the cell doors and the cage doors, pretty much, and then he can make his getaway as we see in the film. That would be
But
my quick
alas, it would not
thoughts.
be visually striking, which
That
is,
is
I think,
true.
that the main purpose of this whole setup. The question is, does he? How's his bathroom situation? Does someone does someone come up with a pan and like, all right, time to go?
That's probably chamber pots, yeah.
No, he's just so strong. He's been holding it the whole time.
He's fueling himself.
It's Austin Powers as soon as he gets out. He's all super threatening, all these dead, all these corpses, sends the duck off, then he just has to go take a piss by a tree.
Yeah, that's what takes him so long.
He's that would be funny. Um, another fun fact: this film was supposed to be far more into the comedy side of things. That probably would have made it into that kind of level of comedy. Kind of happy it
Yeah,
didn't, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they had enough.
they had enough
Yeah,
comedy out of Poe to help parallel the difference of Tylon being serious.
He's just a panda.
yeah. His escape, but like ultimately, what I think they did well here is his escape services to show the abilities of Tylon to the audience and why he's supposed to be feared. And we also show that he's able to think on the fly when presented with obstacles, which is and with things like he didn't know and anticipate, which was the dynamite, because he clearly didn't anticipate that.
Yeah,
Um,
no, he
so
adapts and overcomes situations.
yeah, outside of a few nitpicks, I do really like the prison escape sequence because it still accomplishes the goal it sets out to do, which is establish Tai Lung as the force of nature that he is. Uh,
Yeah, Crimson,
Oh,
you brought up the which arrow I was referring to,
yeah.
and the other one of the archers firing are down a line firing, which should have been staggered arrows when we see it as a blanket as a full.
yeah, the
Well,
best,
I mean,
yeah,
there's more than just that line of archers, though. So I don't
the
have an
best
issue.
faith interpretation is because we do get one overhead shot of the prison. All the walkways and levels are all at different angles, and and they could have been swarmed with archers in all of them, and they all could have fired, which could have created the image. But obviously, we just see the line.
Yeah, when Tylon jumps under the elevator, which is visually stunning shot, all the arrows are on the same level.
Yeah, which again could have worked. They could have timed that shit, like because they have what else do they do have time to do but run drills together? So they could have timed that shit. So like the archer line at the top fires first, then the second line as the arrows are whizzing by, and then obviously it gradually grows into the mess that we see them in. Um, so it's a bit of luck, but yeah, it's a very cool shot. But obviously we're not really given a lot more than just that one archery line that you're pointing out, Springs.
Yeah, and they
And
only do
then,
it once.
yeah,
They all had one arrow.
but he gets up there really quickly. So
To be fair, I don't think they
with the
had much.
crossfire,
Yeah, they used crossbows, right, to fire those arrows.
No, I don't think so. I
Those
think
were
those are
actual.
actual bows.
shoot,
I know there's
and I'm
one actual.
questioning it.
I know there's actual one. The only actual bow that I think we see is the one where they aim at the dynamite. I thought those were crossbows.
Yeah, I'm picturing crossbows right now. Hmm.
Oh poo!
Yeah.
I thought they
It.
were short bows.
All right. Yeah. I'm picturing crossbows. They could be short bows. Um, I have less of an issue if they're crossbows. Because crossbows, as one famous Man of the Night Watch once said, take too bloody long to fucking load.
Oh yeah,
Um, if they're short bows, I would have a little bit more of an issue that they only fired one volley. Or they would have just be. I can't really say they're afraid of friendly fire. Their job is just to prevent this man from escaping. They blew up the prison with all of their people theoretically still inside of it, and they fired that blanket of arrows, knowing that people were still down there by the crossbows.
It's true.
So they're on a mission. All right,
And
let me.
uh, not necessarily that I have a problem with it, but I'll point out a cliche of that pretty much mostly happens in animations in regards to chain restraints, and that's just being able to break them easily because they use the uh, crossbows, the big ones, to break the first chain. When then they're panicking because oh he's loose, and then he rips off the other one like it's paper, even though realistically probably wouldn't be able to, and they wouldn't shoot, and then therefore he'd have issues
Realistically, I
escaping.
agree, but there's a magic system and at work in for their kung fu in this, so I can't really. The
Yeah, that's
Well,
why I was saying that it's more
caveat.
cliche with animations because if you do it in live action, then you're like, well, that doesn't work out.
Yeah,
But in cartoons, usually don't bat an eye at it. It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, he
yeah,
did
that's
just use
fair.
brute strength on the second chain. He didn't like
All right.
nerve touch it to break it.
Yeah. Um, I agree. It's a cliche. But again, services to show his strength more so in this film than it shows to Ace's. I get it has a purpose, so I can't really hate it.
Mhm.
Having looked it up, it is crossbows that they used.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I'm looking at it as well. Yeah, crossbows.
Also, Rip Rhino Wilhelm, the
oh
third,
yeah.
defeated by Tai Lung.
Uh, timestamp 33 minutes 35 seconds.
Yeah. Okay.
They do a very good
So
job of. Sorry, you first.
the fights he has with the rhinos on the bridges are it's pretty cool. I personally don't like the stop to emphasize the impact. I like the slow mo of him like bashing the shield and stuff, but every action where like is like a freeze frame to emphasize the impact. Not a fan of that.
Oh, I
Uh,
assume that was for comedy.
no, I think that was to emphasize his impacts
Could be
and an
both.
element of humor because the rhino's faces when they're getting bashed.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I think it's both. Yeah, that's fair. I thought it was illustrating impact, but I thought the point of that was to keep the tone light because if they were just straight up bleeding and dying, this would change the rating of the movie.
No, they just all get chucked off a mountain and die.
You were gonna say
Surviving
something, Springs?
dynamite to the face.
Yeah,
Huh?
you were gonna say something, Springs?
No, I just said it could be both.
Oh, okay.
Do you guys like the implementation of it?
I do. It gives a little more
Uh,
different, not pacing, but different. What's the word I'm looking for?
Variety of
Yeah, a variety in the scene, and they do that with
yeah.
other techniques of the film by giving like point of view shots or shaky cam or different variety in a scene, so it's not all the same feel or tone.
it is variety. I don't necessarily see variety as wholly good though. You can have bad variety. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with it. Sorry, Crimson.
I wasn't saying it wasn't an objective flaw.
You just
I don't like
personally
it.
didn't like the implementation. That's
Yeah.
fair.
I would have
Yeah,
preferred the slow mo strikes opposed to the
that's
stop.
fair. I get sick of JJ's lens flares occasionally as well. uh,
But writer, that's what
all right,
space looks like.
that's what the future's bright. That's what it's supposed to mean,
Yeah.
Springs. um, yeah, I'll throw the next one at you, Springs. What would you like to get up to?
Well, let's go
Where would you
towards
like
the
to go?
very beginning during a pose like dream sequence. Towards the end, timestamp 2 minute 24 second. His dream starts to grow a letterbox format. I found
Mhm.
it interesting.
Where he's like with the five and they're facing down the
Yeah,
10,000 demons of Demon Mountain.
yeah.
Is it a bad interesting? When,
I don't
when
know because they play it off nicely where it's just focused on Poe and like his warrior big thing like focused on him. When he joins the Furious Five, it's like playing out like it's a movie adventure, so it's not just like the story of him now, which I guess plays into. I mean, it's all a fantasy of his dream, but it's more like he's with his heroes, and it slowly does it with just like a black letterbox, and then it cuts to I think them jumping at the 10,000 demons, and then it has like some red ornate detailing in it, so it's
Oh,
not just
like the
like
sun's
sudden.
blazing behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just a sudden. There's a letterbox; it's slowly growing, which aids to it, but from the
Okay.
first beginning when he's like walking to the little like restaurant or whatever outside to the end part where right before he wakes up. Well, a little before right
Just
when he wakes up because when his dad's yelling at him and it's coming through Monkey and Crane, it's the letterbox is gone at that point.
just to make sure, the letterbox meaning like the slow, like you mean the borders of the actual edit,
Yes,
right?
top and
The
bottom of the
screen.
screen.
Yeah. Okay. I was confused at what you meant, and yeah, there. I'd be curious to get some of your input on other versions of that letterbox edit because there is some very animation movies have used that letterbox kind of edit as like a very symbolic incorporation of specific things as an artistic style. This one's very light compared to one that's jumping into my head right now.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's in this instance used to up the epicness of joining up with the Furious Five and Poe's head.
yeah, it's in the same way that like we get the letterbox framing when Scott Pilgrim is facing down the first Evil X.
Matthew Patel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
vibes.
it switches to letterbox framing as soon as the fight starts. Right? I'm not
yeah,
misremembering that.
yeah,
No, I
that's
think
right.
so.
Yeah.
And then there's
So,
Eternals, which Sprinks doesn't like the use of. Uh,
Oh,
well, to be fair, it's a
Ryder.
bad movie to begin with.
Ryder,
So,
good example. Mission Impossible Fallout.
yeah, that's an example where it's bad.
That's an example where it's
uh,
horrendous. But
I think Mission Impossible Fallout I think has the worst variation of it. It's because
it's too much.
it's clear they're using two different cameras. Is pretty much what it felt like. If it had maintained that for the entire scene, it would have been fine. But the problem is we're swapping between one camera where we have the letterboxing and another one we don't.
Yes, for 25 minutes straight. Uh, Crimson.
Yeah.
So in examples of Eternals and Fallout, in Kung Fu Panda, it's totally okay. Not a
oh
bad
yeah,
thing.
I agree. It emphasizes the epicness of the scene, and visually pulls you in, like you're getting closer to the combat that's about to happen.
Yeah. So there we go. We got a list here. Spot Pilgrim, good. Kung Fu Panda, at least it's okay. And then we have towards the better end, uh, Mission Impossible Fallout, and the other one,
Eternals.
Eternals. I don't listen. I don't remember Eternals all that much. And to be fair, neither does anyone else. When did the letterbox happen?
Throughout the whole
All
movie.
over.
Whole
Oh, it
film.
was
Yeah,
the whole movie.
Yeah. Fallout,
yeah.
it's one scene. But Fallout, because it's so fast and quick, it's just like my eyes. Eternals is the whole movie. It's like this whole scene we're gonna put in Letterbox. The next scene, let's not.
Oh,
Well, there's a lot of like establishing shots in that movie, and that's when they do a wide scene, and then when it's talking, they switch it up.
Look, just because the creative
So there's
liberty and artistic
reasons
choice is
for it.
there, does not mean it can't be taken negatively.
that's true. Um, yeah. No, I like I said, I didn't like it in Mission Impossible. I think we were both reacting to that live because I hadn't seen that film. That was my first time watching it with you. So that was a fun experience. Just both of us experiencing that together. Like, what is this? We were both complaining about it.
Yeah, it just needed to stick to one or the other. Like if it just
Yeah.
stuck all in Letterbox, that would have been okay.
Yeah. So
Anywho,
On the topic of this intro part, I remembered this being like entirely 2D, and watching it the critical eye on the pod, there's a lot of 3D elements in this opening that
of
I
the
did
dream
not remember.
sequence.
Yeah, so it's a lot of 3D made to look 2D,
Yeah,
which I
I
think they
would
did a good
agree with that.
job with, but I never really noticed it.
That's fair. I have a lot to say about the opening since we're here. Um, I'll start with the fucking logo. I actually like the DreamWorks logo change for the sake of the film.
Oh, just a custom
Uh,
one.
yeah, I like when animations occasionally do custom intros, like Spider Verse and stuff like that. It kind of helps lends to makes it feel more of a, it helps transition you into the mood for the film almost, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And funny
but
enough,
this
even a sorry to cut you there.
yeah.
Funny enough, even a classic one where it's not a change feels distinguished to a certain film because there's one could say there's so few of those since everything else gets a custom one.
Yeah, and
If that
also
helps.
nowadays with a more retrospective look, I'd say the ones where that don't get a custom changer, you can look at them more nostalgically. It's kind of a a reference to kind of their earlier works usually
That's
nowadays.
yeah. When I see the DreamWorks logo, I always think of Shrek because that first one
Me
doesn't
too.
have a change.
Yeah, I always think of Shrek, and then I think Kung Fu Panda was the first one that I saw where it had such a drastic change,
Oh yeah,
and
it
then
wasn't the little shadow boy just up on the moon.
How to Train Your Dragon was a little more subtle, but there was changes. Obviously, because it had, like, the Night Fury flying in, like, complete silhouette in the
Yeah.
background.
And then the
Um,
was it Madagascar? The penguins take out the kid,
yeah,
and I
that
think the
was
same
awesome.
happens in Small Soldiers. I think the soldiers take out the kid too.
Now
Poor kid.
that kid yeah, that kid gets the crap beaten out of him. Uh, all this to say, I don't like their new logo sequence. They went full, like, Marvel logo with it.
Oh, all the rainbow
Yeah.
color to it. Looks like
Yeah, all
Mario.
the rainbow color to it, and they go through all the
Well,
characters.
it's just a montage. It's not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Forgot that
Yeah,
part.
the
Yeah,
one they implemented on was it Last Wish? Was that the first one they did that with? Puss in Boots
they can't recall.
2.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is I think the first one they implemented on. Great movie, bad logo. um, all right. So yeah, the opening itself tells everything Poe wants in life. He wants to travel. He wants to be cool. Wants to know kung fu. Wants to be friends with the Furious Five. Wants a life of excitement, and he also wants to be so cool that like it's easy to be humble. That sort of thing.
And
And
his
one
awesomeness
note that
blinds people.
yeah, his awesomeness blinds people, and makes him really attractive. And on another note, never really detected this on some of my earlier playthroughs, but that's earlier playthroughs. Jesus Christ!
Watch throughs. There you
Can
go.
someone kill my gamer part of
That's
me
the
real quick?
PS2 game you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. But I never really caught on to this. I know I caught on to it subconsciously, but I never really like wrote it down and fully acknowledged it until like I started taking notes for the movie. But it's also a setup that he's using the green sword in this. His knowledge of all the kung fu artifacts, because we see that green sword later on. So it
Yeah,
was a nice kind of setup that we gets paid off later that I appreciated.
Yeah.
yeah. That
And
his knowledge isn't just making up artifacts and whatnot. They're actually real things.
Yeah. So like when he swings in and cuts off all the spearheads of like the first 1,000 people that are closest to them, I get the impression that there's a legend about it, about that in particular, with in regards to that weapon that we see later. So it also that also does the thing where the fact that he is super knowledgeable in all the kung fu stuff, like he's a huge nerd when it comes to that sort of thing, knowing all these little facets and facts about how that weapon works and stuff like that.
and
So yeah, sorry. Go on.
the way they portray the dream is pretty cool because there's a poster in his room with that's the same as the dream art style. So he's dreaming it based off a poster he has of the five
Yeah,
as
he
well.
probably sits there and fantasizes about it. Wouldn't be too far fetched for me to believe that with how much of a nerd he is.
And I
It,
did write because of how much of a fan he is, why he doesn't really have any Shifu or Uguay merchandising. He never really talks about them. It's all about the first five.
the far as far as I can understand, it's just because he wants to be friends with the Furious Five, and like he could never be quote unquote Shifu's friend. You know, he's just the master and teacher. Same with Uguay.
Yeah, it doesn't seem Uguay and Shifu have posters or merchandise of themselves.
Well, he's like the Fierce Five, best in the lands. I'm like, well, Shifu and Uguay are pretty good too. I
Yeah,
don't know.
as
It
far as
seems
we
odd that
understand.
they're completely void of his
It's
Yeah,
also
liking in
interesting
kung fu.
that Shifu trained, the Furious Five, but he also uh, trained Tai Lun beforehand, but there's no Tai Lun stuff.
Well,
well, I mean, I
I'm
that
not,
once you burn down the valley, I'm gonna assume that
once you become a bad guy,
like once a certain villains of World War II start waving a certain symbol around, it's gonna be hard to kind of find those.
yeah.
Like I've seen some Indiana Jones action figures out there that aren't Indiana Jones.
Well, yeah, but they're iconographic
Okay, yeah,
because
Well,
they're villains of Indiana Jones.
it's also based off a movie. These are actual people in the
yeah.
world. I just love my Mustache Man action figure.
Oh wow! Not clip that somebody please.
For some
Well, it's
reason,
Doug
his
Dimmadome,
for some
my
reason his
favorite
karate
Mustache
chop
Man.
action only goes up.
Yeah. Oh my god,
That's pretty good.
that's probably the best joke I've heard all month.
Good one.
um, so I also really like the juxtaposition to from the dream to Poe waking up in his mundane life. You know, uh, I don't know. The juxtaposition is very strong. We get to meet his dad, and I like the fake out with the shadows on the ground with all the stuff he's holding, so you think it's a panda and surprise it's a goose.
Yeah,
Totally
It's
a
fun.
joke. Totally a joke on set, by the way. That's how that came about, and then they turned it into a plot point rather decently.
question somewhat. The shurikens he has in his room, are those real?
He seemed worried when he put it in the noodles, so I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them are sticking out of the wall, so presumably yes, they're real.
Is there
Lends to
rest?
more of his being a
No, I was just
kung fu nerd.
yeah, I was just curious if he has actual shurikens or if they're just like toys.
Yeah, they're stuck in the wall and stuff, so I would say they're probably real.
Yeah. Not to go linearly here for a second. However, I only want to bring this up because I have a lot of memories attached to this scene. The transition from Poe looking up into the mountain to Shifu playing the flute before the Furious Five attack him. For some reason, that transition uh, lived rent free in my head for many years, and I always remember it as like my favorite moment in the film. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a cool transition.
yeah, I don't know why it stuck with me. Like to this day, I was looking at it critically this time, and I'm just like, I just shrugged. I'm like, was childhood me just stupid? I don't.
Well, I think a part of that that's cooler to me is the fight he has with the five, where the flute in the song being played in the background matches his swinging of the flute, which
Maybe
it's
I could
cool.
have picked it up subconsciously, but yeah, for some reason the transition from being like next to Poe to the mountain and watching him play, I just really like the music that he was playing too, on the flute. Um,
Could be.
yeah,
And Crimson, that's a great detail.
Yeah,
I do like the kind of transition of Poe going down the stairs from his bedroom to the kitchen, and it's the camera outside the building tracking him, but it's in line with him
Oh.
falling. It's not smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Pretty big
agree.
building.
Well, I mean,
Noodle Shop's doing quite well.
yeah, it's true, and that's what a lot of people. That's what a lot of living was like back then. Businesses were tied to their living situation.
Yeah. I was getting
The
real
infamous one is
curious.
obviously the tavern.
It does get shown, but I was real curious for a while. I'm like, are these people paying for their soup, their ramen? They're just taking the bowls. And I'm like, where's the payment? And then shows later that they just leave it on the table.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good detail that they show
probably a
that.
cultural thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you pay when you leave, right?
It depends on the establishment, I
Usually,
guess.
yes. But I mean, you still pay at the end of the service.
Well, if it's a sit down, but also
Yeah,
like
if
a
it's a sit
restaurant, if
down.
you're going up
But
to
yeah,
the counter to get your food.
yeah. I'm thinking of buffets for some reason, and I'm like, those are weird in between, kind of, because they're technically still sit down, but you still pay
Yeah,
at
and
the
you pay
beginning
upfront
or
for that.
yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah. I'm just gonna write that
It
down
just
as yeah.
depends.
It's just a cultural thing that I suppose.
There's a part towards the end where I'm curious if you guys see it as maybe a crack in Poe's character a little bit. I kind of view it that way, of him immediately jumping on Oogway being an crazy old turtle when the Dragon Scroll was nothing. Uh, he didn't. He seems like he lives, breathes kung fu, believes in all these people absolutely, and then the one time Oogway is wrong, presumably, he's like, well, he's just a crazy old turtle. Uh, I didn't see that as Poe.
Um,
I'm gonna with that. I'm not totally against it, but I'm like slight for it because he doesn't seem to be the most graceful. He breaks a whole jar that like all those artifacts he knows. He doesn't have anything of Uguay or Shifu. He just knows of them pretty much. Up to that point, though, he's had a talk with Uguay, but it just seems he's more an emotion that he doesn't understand the Dragon Scroll itself, even though he doesn't like he's not wanting to be the Dragon Warrior, and then he does want to be it, and it's like back and forth, and it's like this is just that flip flop of maybe he isn't because there's nothing there and he doesn't understand it. So I think that's just a way to lash out in a way.
um, yeah, I would say I attribute it as a way of lashing out, but I'm gonna take a harsher stance. I still think it's perfectly in character. I think everything up to preceding that particular moment is essentially a build up to nothing. Because you have to remember the five were dropped paralyzed at his feet, and he considers them like far above what he is capable of. And Uguay chose him, so yeah, cool. He can do kung fu now, right? That's the whole point of the montage and everything. But now he's expected to face down Tai Lung, and he finds that idea absurd. And then he's promised that the Dragon Scroll's power, done by whether that's Uguay's doing, because we don't really know the origin of it, but presumably it's Uguay's doing the Dragon Scroll. Um, Uguay clearly believed that it would provide some form of power to the Dragon Warrior, and then he was pretty much provided nothing as a boon to help him, as a means of helping him against Tai Lung. So him lashing out, I think, is perfectly in character in that scene.
Yeah, I'm fine with him lashing out. Just him disregarding Oogway, some crazy old turtle, is the part I have an issue with. Because I agree, he would be upset that he keeps getting yanked back and forth. He's never fully believed in himself, and when he finally has, it's a spat in his face. Just him, the way he talked about Oogway is, I guess, my issue with it. Not that he's freaking out over it,
Hmm. I yeah, I because it's
because he has
the
such
way he,
respect for everything. Oh, the invisible trident. Oh, the sharp sword that cuts yourself, and the peach tree of wisdom. Everything he's just so enamored by and loves. And then the biggest, the head honcho, Oogway, he's just like, crazy old guy because I'm upset. It
When Poe had his chat,
doesn't seem like Poe to me.
when Poe had his talk with Uguay, did he learn much from him, or was it all too cryptic? because that could just go into Poe's connection to Uguay being off of that one conversation. And if
And he
that
was
didn't
certainly
really,
attentive.
but if it didn't really hit with Poe and resonate with him to an understanding, that it kind of makes sense that he just called him crazy because he didn't get the answer or answers he was looking for when they had their talk.
The way I interpret that scene is that he would have left if not for Uguay stepping in and giving him the advice.
Probably.
Um, I don't like I said I him dismissing Uguay as a crazy old turtle because he felt now he just feels abandoned. Like I said, I don't really have an issue with that. I wrapped that up in him lashing out. He can regret it later, but he's not one to bite his tongue. Poe.
No, not unless it's coated in some kind of food. I find it slightly, I mean, it's to play to the course of the film and everything, just slightly convenient that out of all of China, Poe is lives this close to the Furious Five that he adores.
Yeah, that pretty much we can only assume that's just destiny related, and that's also why he would know who the Furious Five are, is because they obviously would be the talk of their town, being that's they're up in the mountain. But yeah, I can chalk that in as a bit of a convenience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, a lot of people are big fans of BTS, but they don't live right next door to me.
We also live in a different time where we have the internet and we can see things from across the world. This is
Oh yeah,
a
you're
localized small area that
yeah.
you only have word of mouth for certain things. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah.
In that instance, Crimson, are you saying that Poe's statement of like they're the best in China isn't fully true, and that's just his own belief?
Could absolutely be. I mean, we see that the at least can't really use it because it's in the sequel, but there's other kung fu masters like Croc and Ox and all that that uh, the five look up to as superior masters as well. So yeah, I don't think they're the best because I think Shifu and Ukwe are better too. I think that's just him high on his love of them.
Yeah, you'd like your local heroes in the same way you like your home team.
Okay, okay, we've seen that before in a good classic, Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again with the sheriff.
That's not an reference I expected you to make, but that's true.
Hey, town hero.
Yeah, it's true. Um, but in terms of, I guess, yeah, because I'm thinking like you got me thinking about history now. Sorry, Crimson. Sorry, Springs.
Mm.
But like the idea that like people lived really closed off lives pretty much until the advent of the 1920s. Uh, their life was pretty much wherever you were born, you pretty much stayed there for your whole life. That's why people went off to join the Lord's army when, during medieval times, because that was your chance to go travel and see the world, quote unquote. That's why people volunteered to go on crusades. um,
A dangerous vacation.
a dangerous vacation that surprisingly involves Orlando Bloom trying to swing a sword at me.
Gotcha. A little detail I found was during the morning of like the Dragon Warrior will be announced, Poe brings up to the masses, everyone eating their noodles and his dad around is like they've been waiting 1,000 years for knowing when the Dragon Warrior will be, but it's announced that day with posters that it's going to be an event of that day and not like, oh, it's going to happen in a week from now or anything. I mean, this is even before the talk of Thailand's release. Or no, no, that
this
scene
this
was
is after
somewhere.
this is after he sent Zane
That's
off,
after that. So
but
I guess
before he
it's in a
released.
rush of panic, but it still would have been Uguay's decision because he's the one choosing, not Shifu's.
Mhm.
As he said, he wants to live to see this, and he dies really soon after this, presumably because we don't really have a timeline.
But the announcement's still chosen by Uguay, so he chose just like it's going to be today, and they're like, okay, let's get announcements out.
Yeah,
Start working on
that's what
those
we have to.
posters.
That's what we have to go with. He wanted it that day.
Presumably, it happened that day or the day after. It's pretty close together, in either case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not against it being that quick either. I think it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, I mean, if the lord of the castle would send out messengers to the town, "Hey, town hall meeting, let's go." Pretty much. Yeah, I'm fine with it. It is their way of life.
Okay.
Now, an issue I have pertaining to the whole ceremony is Poe was sent up there ahead with the noodles for some reason. And the reason being he gets alone time to try to sneak in without his dad seeing him trying to sneak in, because of how long it takes him to go on the stairs. When you would think the dad would be there with him going up the stairs, saying, "Hey, noodles, noodles,"
Well,
but he's
the
absent just so Poe has his alone time
Let's
for
close
the
another
yeah,
store.
story.
he's got to close down the store. That's pretty much my assumption is why it takes so long because he's got to clean up all the tables, he's got to turn off all the pots, he's got to do all of that stuff.
And what about the few villagers who are like, I don't care about the Dragon Warrior? Finish their meal.
I mean, didn't it look like they
Oh
were
yeah, it was
all
empty.
out when when Poe pushed them all out? Yeah, it was empty there.
It also it seems like he doesn't care all that much. The Father Goose Man.
No, he cares about the business opportunity,
Yeah.
which is why I think he would have actually gone. Because he's right. That would be like the only food that no one else brought stuff.
I would agree. However, his son just had the noodle dream in his
I who
eyes.
told you?
So
Yeah.
in his eyes, his son now values the business as much as he does.
Wouldn't you want to see that though?
He already did. That was their morning talk.
I mean, the action of the dream. Oh, look, this is his
No, no,
first
no, no. Because
dream thing.
remember he says he's almost ready to learn the secret ingredient of his most secret ingredient soup. That's layers for the theme, by the way. But
Yeah, yeah.
no, he wouldn't want to see that. He's got to close the business down. He obviously wants to, but he's still business oriented, and now he knows he can trust his son to do this on his own.
And do you think he would have commented, "Why is the noodles at the bottom?"
I mean, he came up there holding the apron and the hat, so presumably yes, that was originally what he was probably going to do. But he saw his son sitting on a cart of fireworks, and that took precedence.
And then I guess another issue potential with the entrance is why didn't he just climb the tree?
Um, I think he tried to.
Try to be
I mean,
launched by the tree.
he pulls it back to get launched, but he doesn't just climb the tree and watch from the tree, which is definitely viable. There's nothing blocking the path from the tree.
Yeah, that might be a problem. I haven't. I have to rewatch it.
He didn't ornate it
I'm
to food.
Yeah, my assumption as to why he tried the catapult thing first, he tried. Sorry, I didn't mean to say he tried it first. I assume he tried it after he tried climbing it, which would be interesting. Pandas are usually good at climbing, so yeah, that one I would probably agree is an issue if it's there.
Oh, and the jerks closing the door. He was totally loud enough when
Yeah,
they were
that's
closing it.
true.
Hey, wait up, wait up! And
Yeah.
then
True.
they would have felt the door thud while they're closing it.
I mean, he was hitting the door in time to the drums, which I guess can be covered
Oh,
up.
that was
But
after it was closed.
yeah, but
Yeah, that
him
was after
actually
it's closed.
screaming through the crack to
Yeah. Let
people.
me in. By the way, this is the original "Let Me In" meme right here.
Oh,
Let me in.
Crimson, little thing on you with the Destiny, as you so called, with the Shifu to Zane to Tylon.
Yeah,
The fireworks going off for Poe to land in front of Uguay's point.
yeah.
Is that destined?
Oh, they're like the legend, the warrior will come in a ball of fire, right? That was mentioned earlier, not just by Tai Lung later as the events that happened.
Was it?
So I'm pretty sure someone said it before that.
I don't remember the whole ball of fire thing happening before Tai Lung mentions it.
Pretty.
Because Tai Lung refers to it as like, I heard he fell from the sky on a ball of fire.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Where do you hear it from? A neighboring village he stopped by?
Probably.
Probably.
Well,
I
then
don't have
that
an
can go
issue with
into
him
Zane
finding
taking a
that out.
rest.
Well, like I said, I think it takes more than a day for travel. So yeah, they'd have to take pit
Yeah,
stops.
I assume they
That
took
wasn't
pit
my
stop.
issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm assuming Tai Lung just wore. I would love to see a comic where Tai Lung is just wearing a fucking cloak in disguise somewhere, just trying to blend in to get some food before he moves on.
We can make it an animated short, little eight
Can I have
minute
some
thing.
bread?
Tai
I'm
Lung
hungry.
traveling.
Yeah, I just evacuated after spending like 20 years in prison, so my stomach is empty. Please, food. um,
And now I have to rewatch it because
Yeah.
I feel
Because
pretty confident that it's said before Thailand
even
says
if it's
it.
a ball of fire, he didn't get
No,
there
he
in a ball
wasn't.
of fire. He just fell.
No.
yeah, but I mean that's what the legend would spread as, because that's what legends are. They're
Yeah, exaggerated
exaggerated
things.
tales. So I agree, it would be fireworks within the particular town, but eventually it would say fire to someone else, and it goes from town to town, spreading like that, from messengers to shopkeepers and traveling merchants. That's
Yeah.
how it would get around. So I'm
Dragon
fine with
Warrior
it.
arrived in chromatic flame.
Yeah, so
To
I'm
answer your question, Sprinks, yes, I do think that would fall under the Destiny preview.
yes. If you're asking him landing specifically from Uwe, yeah, that's that falls into the Destiny theme. I would say it does. Uh,
Do you think otherwise, Sprinks?
Oh, I'm trying to think of variables where it could have gone differently.
He could have not landed in front of him. He could have
Yeah.
not made it into the palace.
I
The
mean, do you think
fireworks could not
Uguay
have
would
gone
have?
off.
I'm trying to think if Uguay would have pointed and just kept walking, like through the crowd and opened the doors and put it at Poe.
I mean, he sensed the dragon warriors here.
And he was.
So, yeah, and we know who the dragon warrior is.
yeah.
So,
Uwe theoretically
Uguay
could
would
have
have
done that,
done
but we
something.
don't know
Yeah. I'm trying.
because
Destiny put Poe right in front of him.
you know what we really
So,
need? We need a what if Kung Fu Panda scenario. So Uwe
what if
points at
Mantis was
somebody
the
else.
It
dragon
would have been
warrior?
like either of you two seen Love, Death, Robots? There's
Yep.
one about
Season
like
one.
a not. It reminds me of the Hitchhiker's like probability drive thing, or the book. But it's like the book on like the history of the world, and it would change variables to still get to a different result following the
Mm.
bad guy World War II.
Oh, got it. Um, yeah. If for the what if scenario, you mean?
Yeah, it's like one little thing off, but still getting to the end credit or the end result and situation.
That would be a funny like
The
what if
anti-butterfly effect.
that would be a funny what if short that like say Poe is sent on a long journey by his father, and then Uga just wanders out of the palace, still pointing his hand, walks down the stairs, still pointing his hand,
The
and like
crowd's following him out.
yeah,
Yeah,
Where's he going?
and then he just goes on a fucking he just goes on like a 3 year journey, just pointing
You
his fucking hand, and
senile
eventually
old
finds
man.
yeah
goes on a Forrest Gump run.
yeah pretty much.
He hits the ocean, turns around, walks back.
that would be a funny what if short for Uwe.
My example actually probably isn't the best fitting. I guess more could be with Tim Burton's second Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass.
Mhm.
That result of like time travel, like trying to change destiny, but it reverts itself.
Oh yeah, like the oh fuck sacred timeline bullshit
It was
that
the
he
Queen of
gave her
Hearts
as the
hitting her
one.
head, and
Yeah,
Alice was like, "Oh, I'll change it so it never happens." But no matter what she does, it still happens.
yeah.
So I feel
It's
like same could be with this.
it could be yeah. Uh, at least that's the implication. Um,
I have an error I can point out.
you have an error, you
Yeah,
say?
when Poe is trying to get in to view the Dragon Warrior, he gets thrown, I think, by the tree and cracks the wall right by the window at 12:21. 10 seconds later, at 12:31, when he's sitting on the stairs, the wall is no longer cracked.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
true. That's an error.
Which is
That's
unfortunate because
funny.
they usually keep up with damage continuity. Like the Shifu and Tai Lung damage stairs stay consistent when
Yeah.
Poe and Tai Lung fight on the stairs. The
I
damage is there.
yeah, which is cool. But yeah, it sucks. I guess that wasn't they didn't maintain the continuity. So yeah, that's an error. One thing that I was really surprised by, because one thing I was expecting going back into this film, I expected the Furious Five themselves to be kind of like non-characters, but they're actually really well characterized outside of Monkey. I
I
think.
feel like Monkey, Crane, and Viper don't really get much.
I think
I
Crane
mean,
gets
they're all
enough.
characterized.
Yeah,
Like they're
Crane gets
characterized, but they're not
characterized.
much
Yeah, Crane gets
characters.
characterized. Viper gets characterized. We get a little bit of Viper's character, and a little bit of Crane's character. We don't really get anything with Monkey. I think Monkey's characterized, but I don't think he's a moving
He
character. If
finds
that makes
things
sense.
funny.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's yeah. Like Mantis is the jokester of the group. We get the implication that Viper's the caring one of the group. Tigress is obviously like
the
the
leader.
ringleader, quote unquote, of the group. And then Crane kind of has a
Exists.
Crane exists, but he is well characterized, at least more so than Monkey.
He seems to be the neutral one.
Yeah, he's pretty neutral. Like he commits to like half the joke, and Mantis is the one that finishes the joke.
Who's your least favorite five?
Oh, this was going to be an
Crane
ending
would be my
question I would have
answer.
had. I was going to have who's your favorite Furious Five member and who's your least.
My least favorite is probably Monkey. Just because he's the least characterized of the group, and there's not really much. They don't really do anything with his character with compared to the others, and they do work with the other characters, but it's just very minimal. I think the only time that Monkey is characterized, at least to me, beyond him trying to say joke and asking Tigers to try the food, um, was when he's a more of an individual. He works with people more on an individual level, with at least with regards to the citizens. Like he finds a kid by themselves and goes to find their parents with them, while Tigress instead directs everyone else to do specific tasks while everyone's evacuating. She kind of leaves Monkey to his own thing. That's pretty much the only moment that I really saw that characterized potentially who Monkey was. So Monkey would be my least favorite characters because they don't have many of those isolated moments with them.
I'm going to take a random guess. Tigress is your favorite?
No, my favorite is probably Mantis, but Tigress is my second. I would say Tigress is probably the most well written of the group, though. Like she's clearly supposed to be a well defined character. She's just not
Yeah,
my
she gets
favorite.
the most, and they carry that over onto the second one. I don't know about the
Yeah.
third one. Um,
Yeah. No, she's still the most in the third one as well.
no, yeah, Crane would be my least favorite. I find him very boring and dull. He's not funny. Monkey is somewhat funny, more entertaining to watch at least. Because in the background, he makes funny faces to
Yeah.
scenarios, and it's just more enjoyable to watch. Crane is boring, and it's tough for me if it's Tigress or Mantis because I'm kind of in the same wavelength there. I'll probably lean Tigress though, but probably because of part of the second one seeping into my opinion on him on her. So.
Yeah. The reason Tigress is not my favorite for this one is just because she's very abrasive to Poe. I'm not saying it's out of character for her, but that's just the reason why I like her less.
Mm.
Oh, this
What
is
about you, Springs?
so interesting. Mantis is my least favorite because the element of Seth Rogen laughing kind of takes me out of the film.
Okay,
My favorite is Crane because
I'm not shocked. You and I are always
I
opposites.
really like the scene of the talk of Poe talking to Crane, and it comes across to me that Crane or the Furious Five don't interact with their fans. So it's very awkward for Crane to be in a conversation with a huge fan of his.
I don't know if I would lump that to fans as a whole. um, he says
I mean, he is
himself that he's had
disappointed.
a
Right.
hard day, and
Yeah.
he doesn't like Poe here, and he doesn't want to be rude to him, so he's just trying to let him off kindly. I don't see him acting that way with everybody. I see that as a Poe moment.
I just saw it as a character thing on Crane that I liked.
Okay.
That's fair. Um, but yeah, I guess my original point was just I'm surprised at how well characterized most of the Furious Five are, despite their limited screen time. And I think the only one that didn't get much to flush out their character, quote unquote, was Monkey.
Gotcha. We've touched through the whole like prison and prison escape scene, but I did notice something odd, which is, well, I mean, it's for aesthetic and everything, but the fire in the prison is all red, like the torches are red flame,
Yeah.
and fire we've seen throughout everything else of like the fireworks or um, the training room in the temple has just normal looking fire. So I was curious what causes red flame in a chemical situation, and what I found was strontium chloride or strontium nitrate causes red chemical flame, and I just was curious if like that's, I guess, present in the prison to be used for their fire.
I guess we'd have to assume it, or you can just say it's magic fire. Uh,
Yeah, magic fire does
and that,
exist in this world, so I wouldn't be surprised if
I
it
think
is
it's
supposed to be
pronounced
magic fire.
strontium. I think is. I don't know the origin of. I don't know if you can find that in mountains because they obviously had to dig out the mountain, so maybe they had a excess use of it for it. I don't know. And then Tai Lung later has blue flames when he's fighting Shifu, which is
True.
more of a magical fire than practical.
In a chemical situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Or it's just that hot. It's like really hot fire. It's blue flame. It's Hades. It's from the underworld.
Well,
The
it's certainly
top,
the visuals to go for. Sorry, you're saying?
yeah. Well, I was going to move on to a different topic.
Yeah.
If we were done with that one. The talk Poe had with Oogway, he does his belly thing where it's jiggling and then he stops it and he's like, oh, I'm not like the five. I've got no claws, no wings, no venom. Mantis has his things, which are raptorial legs. For anyone who wanted to know what those are. But it was setting up what his thing was, and his belly, his, his fat is his thing.
His fur.
Yeah, his water weight. That was his
It's
thing.
nice you finding all the accurate
set it up.
Forger points under all this fat fur. I was gonna say fur.
Yeah, and then was Shifu talks about during the pretty much beating him into a pulp training bit that you got to redirect your opponent's energy and use it against them, which is what Poe's fat does in combat with Tai Lung.
Yeah.
So this movie's really good at callbacks, and there's a lot more than just those two
Oh,
examples.
Yeah. I mean,
man,
the
I can go into
acupuncture. Tai Lung can't
Yeah.
use his nerves on him.
yeah, the whole ending bit was just filled with callbacks. Pretty much the entirety of the fight up until their final duel and in like the crater was entirely callbacks to earlier things in the film, either with training or the very beginning of the film with the fireworks.
The fireworks, the final test of Shifu, noodles, monkey's almond cookies.
Yep. And it was all
Holding back the tree to snap him in the face, getting thrown and bouncing down the stairs.
The
What are you gonna
pots.
do? Sit on me? And then he
did
sits on
sit on
him.
Yeah, and then the pots when he's trying to do like hide the dragon scroll with the game with his fucking
Shifu's
long memory
final.
sticks.
I wrote that down as Shifu's final test.
Oh, that's what you meant as
Yeah.
final test.
You are
Okay.
free to eat the final test.
But yeah, there's a lot of callbacks in that fight, and I actually think they do a really good job of it. One of my favorite quote unquote layered moments is when Tai Lung screams that, or pretty much shouts out that the Dragon Scroll is giving him power. And I like that a lot because the meaning behind it's technically true because Poe figured out the secret to the Dragon Scroll. and he's technically tricking himself into thinking that the scroll is a cookie to give him the drive and desired skills necessary to reach it, and then therefore he's using the secret ingredient himself to the fullest, at its fullest in that split second, which is why I really loved that exchange because Tai Lung didn't need to shout that out. Obviously, he's despairing because he thinks it's an actual power, but he's still true in what he says is that the Dragon Scroll is giving him power by virtue of the fact that Poe is using the secret to it.
How else could he be losing in these fights? It has to be the power of the scroll.
Obviously, he's still justifying it to himself before the wishy figure hold. Like he's like, I can't lose to a panda.
Now, Ryder, you've brought it up many times. It might just be my soft brain that it doesn't fully click or get there. But this film is a great example for me to see great writing
For what specifically?
of callbacks being met and showing the teaching moments of Poe and everything he's kept up with, and that we've seen it expressed in the film in some aspect to get to this end bit and fight.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of films struggle to kind of what this film does better than a lot of other films do is a lot of films have their respective callbacks to, like, beginning of the journey or parts of the journey that the character goes on. But what this film does is it stacks them back to back to back in relatively quick succession without it feeling like an overwhelming amount of references. Everything that happens is by a logical course of where they just end up on the battlefield, and either the character or either case of what the characters are doing in that moment. Because Poe does have his moment to shine as a fully trained kung fu fighter, but preceding all of that is all the references stuff. So what I think helps to make it work is the references aren't the heart of the fight; they're all leading to the climax of the fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What I really
So it
appreciate
allows
too is in the final fight, there's nothing like Poe does that's new, like a new technique or something he's doing or trying something out. It's all from what he's learned.
it's all from what he's learned, and then yeah, but like so all the stuff preceding the fight is very very like the final fight where they're in the crater is can be seen as very gimmicky, but it doesn't take away Poe's agency because Poe still gets that final fight without necessarily referencing everything as overtly as everything did previous to that did. So I'm in agreement. I do think the rapid amount of payoffs that we get here at the end are great, and the fact that it doesn't feel overwhelming is a testament to the film's pacing and their choice to not have it overwhelm in the climax of the fight itself. Because if all of that had been in like the final moments of the fight, it would have come across as much more aggravating. Like they just put it here to put it here, kind of thing.
Yeah, the only thing with the callbacks and payoffs at the ending that did not like was him visualizing it as a cookie.
Really,
Because he knows it's not a cookie. Why would that push him towards grabbing it as a cookie? I think that lessens it, takes his agency away. He should just be focusing on the scroll and not imagining a cookie he knows isn't real to then push him. I think it sends it's the wrong message for what he's doing here.
Okay, so Crimson, you see it as Poe's envisioning the scroll to be a cookie rather than it showing the scroll and turns into a cookie for the audience perspective of what Poe's training is doing.
He stops, stand there, puts his fingers around his head to visualize. That's what he did. So yes, that is what happened. And I guess that's my point on it.
Okay.
and I sorry, I was quietly thinking. I don't. Um, I guess my question to you is how you saying it. Your point is damaging Poe.
Well, I think
Mm.
what Crimson's saying is Poe has to visualize it as a cookie in order to get his body to be able to, climb fast and jump high, and because it's a
The
food
whole point
substance.
of the scroll was that the power is within yourself all along, but the visualizing isn't his innate strength anymore. He has to make up things to get to his objective. He's
Well, no,
falling back on the food thing instead of just being, I am the dragon warrior, after seeing all of the things he's been doing.
yeah, but the visualizing the food thing is how he was trained, so he's falling back on his training.
He wasn't trained to visualize things as food. He was trained
No, no,
using food.
yeah, but him visualizing food helped him do things that, quote unquote, were difficult for him to do. That was the point of Shifu lying to him about Monkey holding cookies on the top shelf. He wanted to see what Poe might do.
Well, it wasn't lying. They were actually up there.
Exactly. Like I said, he wasn't lying, but that was the point of it. He was testing him because he realized what Poe was doing, or like what could be a driving force for him. It happened to be food. So for me, I just saw that as, yes, he's visualizing it because that's his strength. That's what he's trained to do. That's how he gets his drive constantly going.
Well, yeah, but that was with Poe not even realizing it. The fact that he's psyching himself up here with fake food,
Yeah,
which
Well,
I
to be
think
fair,
takes
he has
away
a
from the fact that it's not real food. He's driven by food,
yeah.
not the imagination of food.
yeah, but he could still do that. That's the point, though.
No, I get what Chris is saying. That he has to like pause to visualize it in order to do it, which is a weakness. Like he can't just do it on his own.
Is that the issue? Just what's his clarification? Sorry, I'm asking Crimson if the clarification that you just made was like what he means.
That goes under the umbrella of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm still lost on, I guess, the problem of your umbrella.
I think it takes away his agency, and puts it in the wrong direction.
Is it like the Suicide Squad when Polka Dot Man has to envision Starro as his mom
That's a good comparison.
in order to use his powers?
Yeah, yeah, I can agree with that. That one's more used for comedy, but it is an apt comparison.
All right, I actually like that scene. So I'm still lost on.
I can like a scene, but that
Yeah,
doesn't make me think it works right.
I'm just trying to find other examples to.
yeah. My idea here is like I'm trying to figure out a way for you to convey to me why the issue is not working. I guess for you.
I think maybe because it's not instant. Is that it, Crimson? He's not running and visualizing it. He has to stop, pause, and get it to that point before he can continue, which is a weakness because it's a delay.
No, it's not. It's not that he just stops to visualize. That's not my problem.
Okay.
It's he has to visualize it. Is my problem with it, because up to this point, he doesn't visualize anything to help him. It's all real stuff in front of him. Training, it's real dumplings. Monkey's cookies are there. Uh, he knows they're real. He believes Shifu with the cookies. He sees the dumplings. This is not real food. He's driven by food, and there's nothing here.
So he's imagining it to give him a drive, though.
I
But
don't know why
I
he
understand
needs a
that. I understand
drive
that's
because
your
he's being
problem.
successful here.
Yeah, but
He
now he's
sees
facing a
himself
new
as the Dragon
problem.
Warrior now. He has the secret. He's been eating Tai Lung thoroughly up to this point without the food help. So I don't know why he just needs food help now.
Oh, I see. So like the whole fight, the fireworks and the everything before, like he's been fighting Thailand, none of that had to do with food. Like he's just doing that all because of the training. It doesn't have a food connection to it.
It's training. He's confident. He believes himself now because of the secret ingredient.
But for
And then just out of the blue,
he
he now
needs
has
the
to
food.
visualize food to climb a wall
I see.
when I don't see that as necessary at all.
Hmm. Okay. What if he did it
I
to
see it as a
prevent?
crutch that he doesn't need anymore.
Okay. So if you wait, you said it's a crutch that he does. It's a crutch that he doesn't need anymore. Is what you said?
Yes, he's falling back on the visualizing of food when he doesn't need it anymore.
Okay. Why not rely on a crutch in a fight?
He can climb the wall by himself.
Okay, but
He
now that
doesn't
you
need that.
framed it like this, my question is why would you not rely on a crutch in a fight?
Why would
Honor?
you run with crutches on when you can run faster without crutches? if you want to take it like that, then crutches are helpful when you are disabled, but they are a hindrance when you aren't disabled.
Well, in this
But
We
example,
this
want to
isn't a
go with
hindrance
that.
because
have
it.
we
But
seen
in
Poe
the way in
run
the
without him?
scene, it's not in the way of the scene. It's not a hindrance. He needs it to get up the wall.
I'm saying he doesn't need them. And Springs, what was the part you just said?
You said, he can run faster without the crutches, but have we seen a part of the film where Poe doesn't have the crutches to run that fast? Or has everything been a crutch that he's been using?
Well, that was my whole thing with his fight with Tai Lung is he isn't using crutches. He is not
Is he
visualizing
not?
food to fight Tai Lung up to this point.
He's
No,
using but he's using his previous knowledge to fight Tai Lung. How is the tree not a crutch then by this definition?
I get out of the fight, I can say the fireworks isn't a crutch. That had nothing to do with food.
The fireworks is probably a better example because he stopped to light the fireworks.
But I think everything else has been an example of the training with Shifu, which has been revolved around food.
well, no. Him holding the tree back to whack Tai Lung was his learned experience of trying to get into the event.
The temple, yeah.
That had nothing to do with his
Okay, yeah.
training. That's him being skillful in the fight. Um, so yeah, he's just competent now. He believes in his abilities. I think we're just gonna have to agree disagree. I don't think we're getting to the core of anything,
Yeah.
you know.
That's yeah. I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I'm not trying to prove you wrong. I'm just trying to get the drive of like. I guess to the point of like the meat of what makes this incompetent. I suppose in your eyes. But you view the act itself as incompetence rather than,
So
as
Crimson,
far
I
as
mean,
I
like,
understand.
if
I'm
he
not saying
didn't
competent.
visualize the scroll as an almond cookie, would he have gone up there just as fast?
I think so. Yeah,
Well, yeah. In what Crimson's saying is that he believes he would have without it because he
yeah,
believes in himself. He's the Dragon Warrior.
Oh, true. It's the
Um.
crutch and the problem that he had to, or he had to pause
yeah.
to think he would. Do you think that goes into him having second thoughts on winning the fight against Tylon?
I think that would make it better if we see him thinking he's doing poorly. That would, I think that would actually help the visual. Like he needs it to be better, but he's enjoying this fight. He's happy.
That is true.
He's
He's
not
just
like, oh
bouncing
shoot,
around and
I'm
laughing.
dying. I'm getting wrecked here. We don't see him actually down in the dumps during this fight, which I think would help needing a crutch. That I think that would actually be better. But with the way the fight is, I don't think he needs it. That's good. That's a good fix. I like that. If he was doubting his fighting skills during the fight.
Yeah. Also, everything in the fight up until that point as well has been like with the environment around him, and at that point, the only environment is the wall to climb.
Hmm. Which we see him climb the cabinets and stuff for the cookies, which, like I said, he would believe to be real cookies, not a figment that he'd be chasing. So it's something he's capable of doing. Um, so I still think that would be applicable.
Um,
Crimson, I can see what you mean. I'll say that. For all of this, I get what you're talking about.
yeah, I get what you're talking about. I still don't have an issue, but at least I understand now. I guess that's the point of usually when I'm digging into people's questions, I want to understand what they're trying to
Mind
get at.
space. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. At least that makes sense to me what you're saying. Yeah, I don't have an issue with it still though. For me, it's I guess from my perspective, just to sum it up real quickly, because may
We
as
spent a lot of
well.
time on it, so yeah, might as well.
Yeah, may as well get my stuff on it. No, I view it as him just using all of his skills in the fight. It's probably I will. This has got me to admit I think it's definitely checks a box with the fight. This is the most check boxy feeling in the fight, but I still view it as a necessity of why he's just using all his skills in the fight.
Yeah, Crimson, I'm gonna go. It's also I think it's fine. I do think it would be stronger if it is the point of like him thinking he's losing to order to do that.
Yeah. So it's I definitely see it's weaker now, but and I think I guess what you did was you convinced me it's very it checks a box. Whereas everything else doesn't necessarily check a box. It has a purpose. This one just kind of felt more check the box because has been his gimmick the entire time.
Mhm.
But it's still applicable in my head because of all the food training and stuff like that, and the need to visualize what he's doing. So
Yeah.
there we go. It's weaker, but I still give it a passing grade, I suppose.
Also to play off that, this is the only instance where Post does this for us, the audience, to visualize and see that this is what he's doing, opposed to everything prior that he's been doing that the whole time of visualizing everything as food. It's just not conveyed that way or shown that way. And it's only the almond cookie that is to the audience perspective of what Post sees.
And I guess an alternative, other than the him losing the fight, um, is what if he still had the spaghetti on it from earlier? Therefore, it's not an imagination of food; it is an attainable goal of getting food. Because he
Oh,
grabs it with
okay.
spaghetti.
Yeah, because it
Oh, I
all
see
had
what you mean.
noodles on it.
So if he had literal food on it, I think that would also make it better. Um, I think the losing one is better, but that's also throwing it out another alternative.
I think the
Yeah,
losing one would show
I
Poe seeing Tylon as a worthy opponent and not just like joking around fighting him.
well, I think he does. I think he saw Tai Lung as a worthy opponent from the beginning. To be honest, I mean, there's a reason he's scared of him. He's just trying to
Oh,
keep his sense of humor.
yeah.
He's trying to be himself, and I can respect
Yeah, it
that.
seems he's more scared of the stories of Tylon than actually the fight.
Yeah, well, and I think
I can agree
he
with
gets it.
that.
Yeah, I can agree with that as well. But to be fair, like Tai Lung hitting him getting sent into the beam and bouncing off of him and hitting it back immediately gave him a very much needed boost of quick confidence. Like, oh, I can actually land a hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rather than just playing games with him the whole time.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I had a point and now it's lost. Damn.
Well, while you search for it, I can bring up. We do see Poe loses a tooth during training, but every time he talks or anything, we don't see a gap. So I think it could be a wisdom tooth.
Oh, I mean, it could be any molar because we only really see the front teeth. But yeah, it could be a wisdom.
Just a back, not visible tooth. That's what I'll
Yeah,
go with.
um, a molar
Yeah,
of
which I
some
guess
sort.
either plays into which I guess plays into Shifu always telling him to brush his teeth because he doesn't have good hygiene, which means his teeth could be weak because it seems it hit him square on, face on, to cause the loose tooth to fall out. But I feel like if it's a molar, it would have had to be the side of his mouth to cause the point, the critical damage to that point of the tooth to get it out.
It all depends on how loose the teeth are. Like, if he had a molar that was like pullable, like you could just pull it out at that point, I think any force probably could have knocked it out, even if it wasn't a direct contact.
I suppose so.
So it's really how bad his teeth were, I guess, is the question. But, I mean, they look fine when he's talking, but
I mean, they're white.
they're not going to put the detail in
Yeah, they're
of
not
dots and
decayed
stuff.
and a deep yellow or anything.
Plus, pandas eat bamboo, which is really good at keeping their teeth clean.
Yeah, but we don't see Poe eating bamboo. He's eating noodles and dumplings.
Eucalyptus, yeah,
That's koalas.
which aren't very corrosive foods either. Wouldn't be too damaging to your teeth.
Another thing, just a small thing that I did like explained of Shifu having a limp, and it's shown in like the backstory that Tiger shows that when Tylon batted Shifu, you can hear the crack of his leg breaking.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, there's the backstories and stuff for Tai Lung and Shifu is I think one of the stronger core elements of the film. Um, and kind of talk on Shifu for a little bit. I think he's very well characterized in his opening scene. Outside of being obviously shown as a kung fu master against the Furious Five, but the way that then transitions into like him running to Uguay and then having to recenter himself because he's not at peace, which is a it was very, very quick characterization setting up who he is and his problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, Shifu is my favorite character in this movie.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. He's a great
Uh,
character. He's a good character to pick.
Unfortunately,
If you picked Wilhelm the Rhino, I probably would have raised the eyebrow. That's your favorite.
yeah, we're not covering the second one, but Shifu does lessen in that one for me.
Well, it's because he's less harsh, I'm guessing, right?
Oh no, they sideline him and they they almost make him one note in the second one to me. But we're not
Yeah,
covering the second one.
yeah. Uh, well, Springs, do you care if we spoil a little bit of the second one or no?
I slightly do because I feel like if
Okay,
there's any other
then I
time
won't.
we're being that we've
Yeah.
covering the first one currently, I feel like the second one isn't so far away to be covered itself.
All right, then yeah, I'll hold off talking about because I'm in agreement with Crimson essentially. More
An
one note. I
audience,
think there's a reason for that,
audience,
but
that's not a hint. Not a hint. I'm not leaning on anything. I'm just saying it could be. I think it's more Uguay destined and prophesized that it's closer than it could have been. That's all I'm saying.
We're more likely to watch Kung Fu Panda 2 than Cannibal the Musical. Right?
Hannibal the Cannibal.
Possibly, possibly. I can't go into.
Can't confirm nor deny any of
Yeah,
that.
Um, but yeah, Shifu is extremely well characterized both in the background in this film and in his introduction. Like one of the things I like that I always really enjoyed as soon as uh Uruguay props up Poe's hand and declares the Dragon Warrior, everybody goes into the what meme. I like that we actually see in the background as soon as the bells ring, we see Shifu grab away like the drum, the what started everything away from the start of the celebrations, and he
Yeah.
actually grills into the. You can see him grilling
What are
the.
you doing?
the pig.
Yeah, like yeah, he's grilling into the pig. Like, why did you start the celebration? This makes no sense. What did you do
Who
that
told
for?
you to do that?
Yeah. See, it's little stuff like that that I think help to characterize Shifu on second watch throughs a lot more than the first one, than our first watch through. Like you can see how very stiff he is as a teacher and strict he is as a teacher with the five in a brief instance with the other Furious Five. And then that contrasts with how he has to train Poe later to get around the difference is he also has to grow as a mentor too, you know?
And when he owns up to it as well, it's like, that's my fault for not for training you like the five instead of the way you should be
Yeah.
specifically trained. Paraphrasing heavily there.
Yeah, yeah, but you got the point across. You did great. And all of this leads to like another scene that actually helps characterize the five because we're angling, and at least for this next few topics, we're going to angle toward. I'm going to angle towards the Shifu Tai Lung story. But another scene that helps to really characterize the five is Mantis helping, giving Poe acupuncture to help make him feel better, and Viper helping, and their willingness to want to share Shifu's backstory as to why he's very strict and stuff like that. And then Crane being a rule follower because he's the one that doesn't want the story to be shared because he knows they're not supposed to talk about it. It's one of those things that very quick in passing, but helps to characterize all of them. And then obviously you get at least the first part of the backstory here with Tigress. Um, and I think that scene does a really good job of characterizing all of the members of the five, except for Monkey. But we know he peeks into the room. That's pretty much it. Um, and then we get the necessary backstory on Shifu, which is obviously very important to the character, and that leans into the last scene between the two, between Shifu and Tai Lung, which is one of the. It's probably my favorite fight in the film, outside of Poe versus Tai Lung, obviously. Because Shifu and Tai Lung's fight is very, very raw, and the dialogue is wonderful.
Yeah, I love how Shifu honestly is proud of him, even though he's a pure bad guy, right? I'm proud of you, but I failed you. I was blinded by my pride and all that stuff.
Pride, ego, insert name of.
Yeah. he didn't blame Tai Lung for this at all, which is what I liked about him.
Yeah. I know I covered a lot there. Did you have anything to add on those things, Sprinks?
No, it's pretty much all wrapped up and covered. Just an agreement to it.
Yeah. Uh, my favorite line is, I like it when Tai Lung, because you get Tai Lung is, who okay, let me just reset here. Um, one of the strengths in fighting in general as a conflict when it comes to writing is being able to characterize the people involved really, really well. And some films obviously characterize their heroes, main characters, long before the fights ever happen. So that way, when the fight happens, you're focused on just their actions. And that's much more difficult to do in shorter films like Kung Fu Panda, where you have essentially an hour and a half limit to your story that you're trying to tell. Um, so you have to incorporate character dialogues and flashbacks within scenes in order to cover that necessary groundwork to make the fights more impactful. So when Tai Lung says, "Not your faults," who filled my head with dreams, who taught me to train until my bones cracked, who denied me my destiny. All of that's laid at the hand of Shifu, and now we as an audience have all necessary context to why Tai Lung feels that way, because he's not really fully characterized until that moment of the story where we have his whole perspective as to why he's there for the Dragon Scroll.
Couldn't have said it better. I think Tai Lung's awesome. He's a great villain.
And I guess I guess I could say now. One of the reasons why Tai Lung is my favorite character of this film.
Yeah, I couldn't blame you. He's probably my second favorite.
Yeah, again, can't blame you for your choice. Again, if you picked Wilhelm the Rhino, I would have probably raised an eyebrow, but not really for Tai Lung. um, DreamWorks got plenty of good villains in their roster,
And they have a
and
couple
Tai
bad
Lung,
ones.
yeah, but I'm saying their retention of good ones to bad ones is they have more. They tend to have more good villains than they do bad ones, which
Ooh,
is yeah.
no. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm sitting on that one. Yeah.
yeah, no. You just tickled my brain. Would do you think DreamWorks has better villains than Pixar?
Oh, absolutely. Not even close.
Pixar doesn't even have bad guys anymore.
Well,
It's
anymore.
not even a contest this minute anymore, Springs.
Okay.
I'd have to look at a list to answer that.
That's yeah. To be clear, I would want to look at this as well. I would say there are definitely Pixar has good ones. They do. I think the DreamWorks ones stand out more.
Okay.
But that's just off the top of my head. Like I said, I'm happy to look at a list and be proven
I
wrong.
mean, Syndrome's pretty up there. Hopper's pretty up there. I would even say Lotso.
uh, yeah.
Prospector.
I know
Eh.
Syndrome and Prospector. I don't remember the other two. I'm
Hopper's
thinking
from
of the
Bugs Life.
wheel. Yeah, I'm thinking of the wheel on Wally.
Oh, okay. The ship.
Yeah.
Uh, Gosh, I forget his name. I want to say Astro. That's not it.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of Pixar's early works I think had very
Yes.
strong villains, for sure.
No, I'm
I
in
think
agreement with
DreamWorks.
Crimson. There's not many villains nowadays in Pixar.
Yeah, yeah. I think Pixar has just managed to. Pixar has had good villains. I'd be curious to see what the ratio is now because I think DreamWorks is still producing good villains. Uh, but that's a topic for another day. We'll rank. I'm sure we can tier list all the villains or something at some point.
Ooh,
one day.
what a fun thought.
Yeah, tier listing animation villains for Pixar and DreamWorks since we already did a Pixar tier list, right? This is not a promise, audience. This is not a.
No, but the domino has been cast.
It's closer now than it would have been. um, but yeah, no, I don't disparage you for your choice of Thailand being your favorite choice, Springs. That makes complete sense to me. He's an extremely well-rounded character. And I don't think I left much to myself when I summarized the characters at the end for him. But
It's also one of the few works of Ian McShane that I'm familiar with. So it's just I always just get in my head that this is Winston from John Wick speaking out.
that's funny.
I like the voice acting for Tai Lung. It's so raw and powerful. His yells are awesome.
Yeah, you can. He exudes his presence no matter where. When Tai Lung shows up on screen, like the reason one of the good things about the prison fight sequence is that it really just establishes his presence in the films. Like you get the sense of like, oh, anything could happen if he's going after you, and even if your heroes are all working together, you know.
I mean, just visualizing the actors is it just seems um, not honorable, but just like high up there, like just like high credited actors, voice actors being used. I mean, Dustin Hoffman paired against Ian McCain or McShane is pretty darn cool. And isn't the second film Gary Oldman? See the voice of
Yes.
the bad one? I mean, what an
Yeah,
Yes, I
also
believe
with
so.
the
great
peacock.
casting pick then.
Yeah, as someone, if you haven't seen the second one, Springs, I actually think you'll like it. I don't know whether you'll like it more than this, but there was a time I did like Kung Fu Panda 2 more than Kung Fu Panda 1.
Who voices
But
the
I haven't
villain of
seen
the
them in
third
a
one?
while, so I think
I have no
it's
idea.
Was it the Ox?
Idris Elba.
Oh, okay, okay. Also another good cast.
I think it's Idris Elba. That
Can
sounds right to
confirm.
me. Um, one
I'll
funny sorry.
I'll let Ryder go.
Alright. One funny comedy beat that I really liked in this is the fact that the dragon scroll was childproof.
Oh
It
well,
was just
yeah.
difficult to open. I kinda smirked at that now as an adult. It made me laugh as a kid, but I smirked at that still as an adult. I quite like the comedy beat. Sorry, Crimson. Go.
Funny enough, my comment was going to be revolving around that scene. So
Oh, well, then
no,
take it away. Perfect.
uh, yeah, when they're during the whole ritual of Shifu getting all the petals and leaves to knock it down, open it. The five are in the back behind Poe, and they just repeat the animation. It's on a loop. It's a looped animation of the five behind him up to a certain
Ooh.
point. There's a point where they react, but the idle animation's just a looped animation.
Ooh. Well, I'm happy there were quick cuts because that's not
I
good.
didn't catch that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not egregious because they're not moving that much, but I did
It's
notice
it's not
it.
as egregious as like a PNG being dragged across
No,
the
no,
screen of a
no,
horse's face.
no. I can't believe that made it in the movie. That
I
was
can't believe I wasn't
ridiculous.
in the pod. I wasn't on the part of the pod to say that.
That's another
Yeah,
DreamWorks movie
no one caught it. Yeah, and
of Spirit.
good bad guy in that one. Uh, unless you count the train as a bad guy, the train was not a good bad guy, as we thoroughly covered that.
The train was God. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so just the looped animation for that bit.
Interesting.
I do like that Shifu creates the ring of water with a gentle touch to settle it at the end. Dude, like mimicking Uguay's movements, at least in that final moment.
Yeah, when he's like, it's hard to see straight with the water
If you
rippling.
allow it to settle. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a nice callback. And I liked it too because Shifu understood in that moment the role he is playing now with Uguay gone, you know?
mhm.
No,
Um,
agreed. Something I caught, which I know it's just Poe out of excitement, but at the timestamp 37:53, after Poe has his talk with Oogway and is like sticking around, just getting his butt kicked all day long, and he goes, "Yeah, keep going, it's great." When Shifu attacks him, the first attack, Poe slaps his hand on the ground in excitement, but I also took it as like him tapping out of like a wrestling move, like he's done with it. But then it follows with "I'll never quit," whereas a tap out is like quitting a round.
Oh, I didn't see that as tapping out.
I,
Well, I mean, they didn't have traditional wrestling back then either, so it wouldn't have had the same meaning as we attribute it to.
That's true.
At least not wrestling as we know it, the different form.
Yeah, I
yeah,
I definitely lean more on just Poe being excited of the opportunity because
Yeah.
he's still being optimistic throughout the whole day of going around with it. Uh, but there's still a quality where it can be seen of him tapping out because it's toward the end of the day and he's been through a lot.
yeah. That's
Another
fair.
moment with the five in the background I liked was that scene when he did his fist into his palm, and he's like, I'm good to keep going." Their faces in shock and disbelief that he can take this,
Yeah.
and then Shifu's like, "Your next opponent's me," and then the
The
shock
look of
continues.
horror on their face, like, oh shit. Yeah, that was good. I man, there's so much to praise in this film. I think I got a lot of my nitpicks out. I think. I'm scrolling through my notes right now.
I got one to
But
pose if you got one.
yeah, go right ahead, sir.
Tai Lung learning the nerve attack in the first place. I always felt that that was weird that he just pulled that out of his pocket. He's like, Shifu didn't teach you everything. So why didn't Shifu use it on him during his initial fight instead of he froze in midair, obviously, during the first thing. But a nerve attack wouldn't have really done anything damaging. And even Oogway, I don't know what Oogway does because it's a different visual. So I don't think he used a nerve attack.
I assumed it was a nerve attack, but the interesting thing about that, I took it as that to be a kung fu master, you have to take some of the learning into your own hands. So how I interpreted that was Tai Lung learned it explicitly because Oogway did it on him, so he figured it out in the same way that Poe figured out the wuxi finger hold.
Yeah,
I
I
guess that
guess
connects.
my bit with the because when Tai Lung does a nerve attack, it's like a blue visual and it's
Yeah,
like
the
a
visual is
poke.
different. Yeah.
The blue visual, it's one poke, and they kind of freeze. But when Uguay does it, he taps several times. It's yellow, and then Tai Lung drops to the ground, not frozen in the stance he was. So
Yeah.
I think it's two different attacks.
I'm in
It could
agreement.
be. It could be. I would say the best, if they are meant to be the same attack, my best way of explaining it away, this is totally headcanon, by the way, is that Uguay does it more precisely, like tactfully, like as a kung fu master would, while Tai Lung doesn't really care. He just brute forces it. Like he doesn't care about the state you're left in after he's done. He just does the technique, if that makes sense. So there's different tiers of level in regards of mastery to that specific move.
Could
It isn't
be.
necessarily they're not, and I'm not saying they necessarily are the same move because I agree the visual's different, and that lends to me as a viewer, as a first time watcher, it wouldn't be the same. They would be completely different.
Yeah, the visual and the technique
Yeah, I
are
see
both
them as two
different.
different. The Tylon one is nervous system of the physical body to freeze it up and tighten it, whereas Uguay's I see it more as a mental um, mentality change, which is what causes unconsciousness.
Attacks the
Uh,
spirit instead of the physical
yeah,
body. Oh, I could see that.
We get a line from Poe at one point saying that Tai Lung was the first to learn the thousand scrolls of kung fu. Uh, so I would have preferred if he was just educated on it instead of being Shifu taught me. It's a slight difference, but I think it would be better for it. I don't know how he
Um,
would implement that in dialogue, like, oh, I learned it from a book, but
yeah,
I
I'm
think it
yeah,
would be better.
I'm still okay with Shifu wanting to teach him that though, because at that point, remember, Shifu is prideful enough to train him to be the Dragon Warrior by teaching him everything.
Well, he wanted
So
Tigress to be the Dragon Warrior as well.
no, no, no. Well, he that was after the issue with Tai Lung.
Yeah, but he was still priming her to be the Dragon Warrior. Do you think he didn't see her as the true one still, and he still saw Tai Lung as one in prison?
No, no, no. I don't think he had a vision of who the Dragon Warrior was He just assumed it wasn't Poe, and then he was probably going to point at Tigris. I would assume that Tigris was his best student, following Tai Lung, but it never really incurred the same need to teach her everything because the difference is that he saw Tai Lung as a son.
I mean, yeah, it
Mm.
shows that in the back story difference of training
That's how
young
he treats
Tylon and
them.
then
Yeah.
yeah, Tigris.
Yeah, and there's that. Anyway, that's kind of the reason why I assume I don't have. That's why I don't have much issue teaching. Have issue with Shifu teaching Tai Lung the
The nerve trick,
the
the nerve
nerve
move,
trick. Yeah, the nerve move.
because he doesn't want Tigris or any of his new
Yeah,
students to wind up like Tylon.
yeah. He doesn't want them to wind up Tai Lung, and this is also post Tai Lung destroyed everything, presumably, even with Tigris because he has such a clear change of demeanor between the two of them.
Yeah, Crimson's essentially like, training your first student like the three forbidden curses because you know how they are, but then your next students it's like, oh no, I won't train you on that.
I mean, I would get that, but we don't see Telling use it in the flashback, the nerve attack. So I'm not going to assume he outright knew it because he would have used it.
Well, there's no presentation of him needing to use it.
Like
He
he could have
might have.
used it on Shifu.
I mean, he
He
breaks
could have,
Shifu's leg.
but he broke his leg, so why would he need to?
You could still fight with a broken leg, but if you're paralyzed, you can't fight. I
Well,
mean, look
maybe
at
that's.
Karate Kid.
I'm trying to think how honorable is Tylon to make it not necessarily a fair fight, but a worthy fight. If he just goes and paralyzes his master, it's over and
Well,
done
I
with.
mean, you have the line in the film. This is where it comes from. Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
Yeah.
Iconic
I
line.
mean, even when he comes to fight Shifu again, he knows it then, if you're saying. So that, he definitely knows the nerve trick then, but he doesn't use it on Shifu at that point.
it would have been it would have been interesting if he tried to use that technique on Shifu and Shifu countered it.
Yeah, that's kind of my headspace with the whole keeping it from the five as a technique because we don't see that as a problem in Shifu's eyes. The nerve attack is an issue, um, to where he wouldn't want to train the five with it because that's a useful technique that you would want good people to use as well.
I think he used
So
it on 5 because he doesn't find them to be worthy or is equal match to
that,
him.
I'm talking about Shifu not
He's talking about
training the
Shifu's
five with
training.
it.
I
We
know.
should have seen Shifu seeing the attack. I think the flashback would have been good. Him countering it, seeing it as a thing he should not carry down to the five. His future trainees.
Oh,
Yeah,
to try.
I,
Okay,
I I
yeah.
would I would prefer to see that as well, like him not wanting to teach the five because of this happened. You
Yeah,
know.
because with the absent, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't show it to them. Because Tai Lung himself is just bad in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having
Okay.
five people with that ability would be good.
Yeah. I think it's implied the reason why that it's, but I would also prefer a visual aid for that one, in the
You
sense
know,
that I would have liked to have seen him,
like if Tai Lung
learn
came
that
and
it was a.
attacked with an axe, I'm sure Shifu would still teach the five how to use an axe. It's a technique or a weapon, a tool. So I would like. It would have been nice to see a reason why he wouldn't teach them that.
Yeah, I agree. Would have been stronger because I think most we have is inference for this one. And I definitely think it would strengthen that particular line of Shiva didn't teach you everything, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Gotcha. My statement was coming off of why Tylon didn't use it in the fight with Shifu at the end.
Yeah, and I think that explanation is fine.
Yeah, he wants to beat his master into submission and then take the dragon scroll. That's pretty much what he's there to do.
However, my one little thing with that is that he wants the Dragon Scroll, and that's like his goal to get to, but he stops to fight Shifu rather than going for the scroll first.
I mean,
You
he
got to
has
deal
to
with your
get through
obstacles.
Shifu.
Yeah,
I mean, if you just straight up ignore him, that's going to be an issue.
No, but I think it would have been more. I'm trying to think more weight onto the fight if he went to go to the scroll of the dragon, saw it wasn't there, and then asked and confronted Shifu like, "Where is it?" And Shifu said, "I'll never tell." Then they fought. because you
Okay.
wouldn't have that
I
part
thought you were
where
talking the flashback. Okay.
no, I'm talking about the final fight. Like Tylon didn't go straight to where the scroll in his mind where he envisions it to be because it hasn't been used, and seeing it's not there towards the end of the Shifu fight. Where then I think that would have driven him more rageful in the fight, trying to get an answer out of Shifu, knowing it already at
I
the beginning.
The reason I disagree with that being better is because it takes away a lot of the character work that I like for Tai Lung. It makes the scroll the reason he's there, rather than like while the scroll is a reason he's there, it makes it the focal point, and I don't like that. It takes away from his other reasons for wanting to beat Shifu into the ground.
Yeah, the rage is because the scroll isn't there, and not the rage he has towards Shifu as a father figure, which is the strength of the two.
Okay, I didn't. I mean, yes, I don't really get that message though. He's been in prison for 20 years, and his goal seems to be more on the Dragon Scroll than getting back at Shifu.
I mean,
Well,
even with
no, his
Zane, he's like, I'm glad I'm not forgotten. So he's still thinking about Shifu even in the prison.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
his first words to Shifu is "I have come home, master,"
Yeah.
and none of it's about the Dragon Scroll. I think I don't remember the first dialogue exchange completely, but I don't think he references the Dragon Scroll at all.
Okay. No, I'm not. I'm not doing or thinking of like a I don't know what to call it, a 0 or 100 situation of like one or the
Okay.
other of like
You
full
wanted the
thoughts.
addition of it.
I'd rather the 60-40 flip.
Um,
Not that
yeah,
Shifu's out of the picture, but it seems his goal is more oriented on the Dragon Scroll because he was the trained to be the Dragon Warrior and never was. I feel like that's more of his focal point than getting back at Shifu, who wasn't even the one to knock him out. It was Uguay, but he has nothing against Uguay.
well,
well,
Shifu was the one that betrayed him in
in
his
his eyes,
eyes.
Shifu is the one that
Yeah,
betrayed him. Yeah.
but even on the bridge when
Um,
he's fighting the Furious Five, he's not talking about getting back at Shifu. He's talking about being the Dragon Warrior.
Well, he's talking about meeting the Dragon Warrior, Poe. He doesn't talk about the scroll itself. And that's the first thing he says with Shifu as well. No, where's the Dragon Warrior? Well, this is going to be between you and me. Uh, so he doesn't talk about the scroll at all. He talks about the Dragon Warrior.
it
If you want to look at it
for
that way.
as far as the fight is contextualized from the dialogue to me, the Dragon Scroll is a goal, but it's a lesser goal. Like it's something he can do because he's there first.
Okay. I just saw it as the Dragon Scroll is what is given and acquired to the Dragon Warrior, and if he's trained and believed all this time that he is the one to be, then he would just go and get it and claim it.
I think
Oh, he already views himself as the Dragon Warrior. Is the issue,
Yeah, so
I guess.
that's why I see his goal is for the scroll because it's a it's not acquired to him. It's his prophecy to have it because he's met that requirement in his head.
It sounds like you carry little weight with the Shifu relationship. What I'm hearing out
No,
of
no,
all
no, no. That's
this.
what I'm saying. Not 100-0. It's a 60-40, but I want to see that 60. I think I would like that 60-40 flipped because it seems that's more what he's talking about in presence to everyone. If not, then I would think there should be more dialogue on him and Shifu.
Well, the reason he didn't kill the five and paralyzed him was to get to Shifu. Uh, the reason he gave the message of him returning is to get to Shifu. So his actions are for Shifu. He could have just killed the bird and surprise, I'm here, I'm taking the scroll. He could have killed the five and not delivered the fear message as Shifu was the reason Shifu gave to why he didn't kill the
Okay,
five.
I see our
So
differences
his actions
in
are
sight.
based off of okay. So
Okay,
how do you see it then?
so your sight is everything he's doing is to damage Shifu by keeping his peace broken. You know, like Zane coming back and warning about bad news and showing that he beat all the Fierce Five, all the trainees of Shifu to get him worried. So it's all to damage Shifu. I see it as Tylon. None of these people are worthy opponents to him, so he's not going to kill him. He's not going to kill Zane. because he's not. It's just a waste of time and effort. So he can go. The Fierce Five, he just takes them all out with nerves because they're not worthy to actually be at his level of fighting. That's why, to me, he doesn't use the nerve attack on Shifu, or even attempts it.
I mean, we have okay, time and effort on Zane. He had him in his hands. He could have snapped his neck, but that's not an issue if you want to go with it with wasted time and effort. He did respect the five for their efforts. So it wasn't they weren't worthy. He did find them as worthy opponents. And we get a line from Shifu explaining why he chose the nerve agent, trying to strike fear. That, so I think there's a lot going towards the psychological attacks towards Shifu than
Then Crimson,
anything
in your
else.
example, on your side of things, why is it that Tylon didn't use a nerve attack on Shifu or attempt?
Okay, are you talking flashback
No,
or
no, no.
final?
In Final Fight.
He's full of rage and wants a punching bag.
Okay.
He wants to hurt him.
Pretty clear. Um, I guess my addition to this sprint, because I don't see it. I don't see it as 60-40, but I see it as clearly 70-30. Like it's in that range, I think, because the scroll is important. It's just not as important as Shifu is to his character work. So it's once Shifu's beaten, that's when the scroll comes into play, because that's his ultimate goal was still Shifu, and the Dragon Scroll is a goal. It's just secondary.
And
Okay.
I think more proof to him being more focused on Shifu is he actually fights Shifu. Uh, in the flashback, he doesn't really fight Shifu. He just pushes him aside and goes right for the scroll. There's no long combat scene. He's like, oh, let me just knock you to the side, go straight for the scroll. Here, he doesn't just push him aside for the scroll, which you find the issue. But I think that's what pushes him more towards Shifu being his primary. His his
Okay.
goals have shifted, just comparing the past
That ex-
to the
yeah,
present.
that example to me is a 50-50 because of Uguay's presence.
He didn't even attack Uguay. He
No, but
tried to ignore him to
no,
go
but
for the
Uguay was
scroll.
present, and that's what stopped him. It wasn't that he didn't fight Shifu that stopped him. So then changing that, it's like that failed beforehand. Let me fight Shifu this time rather than getting by him. Uguay's not present to stop him like he did before. That's why I'm 50-50 on that thought of changing, like not repeating history as a thought process for Tylon in the fight, anyhow.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean,
Mhm.
in any case, no matter, I guess, at any point when he notices the Dragon Scroll's gone, I don't think killing Shifu would have been the answer to try to get an answer of where it is. I think more of just like torture or more pain and caused to him.
Um, yeah, he was either going to kill him or torture him. I mean, that's kind of the implication with him choking him harder and about to scratch it with his paw.
Or if Tylon even wanted to do Nerve Agent then to nerve him and say, I'm not going to kill you, I'm just going to harm you like I've been harmed for 20 years, which is call back then to the rhino stepping on his tail, which he clearly could move and feel. And then he could just be like, he could step on Shifu's tail, who can't react because he's nerved, and just say, I'll be doing this until you finally tell me, yada yada. Like something like that. That could raise a little more evilness to Tylon, which might be crossing a line for a PG DreamWorks film.
I don't see that's necessary though. I think the choice to be evil comes after Shifu apologizes. Like even Tai Lung is taken by surprise with the apology and him admitting that Tai Lung was his fault, and that he saw him as a son, and that he was still proud of him even now. Like for me, Tai Lung's decision to be evil was then because he was taken aback by Shifu being honest, and then he commits to okay, you're still in my way though. You
At
know,
that point, evil was a choice and not just a byproduct of his raising.
yeah, that's kind of why. Again, that's why I really like the fucking dynamic in this film. It's good. Good stuff. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, my like I said, I understand what you're saying there, Springs. I don't think it was needed though. A lot of that's he had his choice earlier in that fight. It was just not as overt, I suppose. Where he has to,
There's no tit for tat. I don't
yeah,
think we
there's
really need the tit for tat.
yeah, and because there's like for me like him being evil could be perceived as a byproduct of getting revenge on Shifu, but the that byproduct is taken away by his choice to be evil in that moment. Like he committed to like, no, I'm here for this now.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Um, one since we're gonna be on this fight for a while, one thing I really do like in the fight where it takes a moment to slow down around Uguay's staff.
Mm.
When Tai Lung is just throwing like the weapons of the Great Hall around him at Shifu, all the prized kung fu weaponry and stuff like that, and even he has to pause when he's looking at Uguay's staff because he knows what it means.
Yeah.
Good,
Uh,
is little it helps with the pacing of the fight and slowing it down, but also it's just a good character moment for both of them as they both acknowledge that someone the villain has passed on, I guess, in Crimson Eyes, but
yes. I mean, it's like
obviously,
that wasn't my decision. Well, it's your decision now, or something along those lines.
yeah.
And yeah, it's a really good addition. They didn't have to put the staff there for that scene, but they did. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a good choice.
I also don't. I know many people could. Maybe the two of you. I don't find it corny that when the staff breaks, peach blossoms go by because it's connected to when Poe broke the vase and like ghostly howls came out.
I didn't see that connection at all, but I don't see it as corny. No.
I don't see it as corny either. Like I said, for me, I kind of talked to this before. It's kind of a spectrum. When you want to be corny in your dialogue or your movie or cliche, my rule is generally you have to earn it. Like I'm fine if the heroes win at the end; they just got to earn it. You know. I think I said the same thing at the end of the Willow uh, podcast coverage when I'm immortal, bitch,
The
or
movie or
whatever
TV show? The TV show?
the TV show. Yeah, I'm immortal, bitch, or whatever what the worm lady witch says at the end of that. I kind of talked about because I don't like that line in that film, and it is corny and cheesy, but that's because they did nothing to earn the line. Whereas obviously Guardians of the Galaxy, you said it yourself, bitch. We're the Guardians of the Galaxy. That to me is a very much an earned line from everything that happened in the film. So no, I the Uguay stuff passing by, I didn't view that as cheesy. I think the film had earned that at that point because Shifu is now in the role that Uguay was supposed to be in or continuing in.
Okay. But do you think every artifact in that temple, if destroyed, would cause some kind of magic system ghostly presence?
Um,
I have no reason to assume that. If you
no
break
reason to
the
assume that.
invisible trident, I'm not going to think something happens. Other than maybe it becomes
A
visible.
couple drop of water comes out or something.
No, it's either it's a broken invisible object or the fact that it breaks, it becomes visible. I don't think the
That would
latter
actually be
will.
a funny line. If it breaks and it's like, oh no, I'll never be able to find all the pieces.
Yeah, after it breaks during the fight and someone steps on it and
Yeah,
yeah, something like that.
it's invisible. That's funny.
Flips on it.
Um, I would.
It'd
I
make it
think
more
I.
comedic.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to add that in this film because it's very hard for me to want to change anything about this fight sequence between
Oh,
Shifu and
well,
Tai Lung.
okay, but the trident bit not said by either Shifu or Tylon. Like that would be a pose situation earlier on or
Yeah, no,
after.
yeah, no. Poe might say something like that.
I do like the setting, the fight, the lighting situation we have for the fight. The the very gray sky, the lightning, the blue underglow of the temple during the fight
Yeah,
looked really good.
And
Even
then the
though
sun creeping
the
in when
blue
Poe
lighting
arrives.
is questionable of sources of the blue lighting, it still looks good. Uh,
And then you throw in the blue fire flame on Tylon.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. It's very dark, and I think it adds to the tone of the scene. In the same way that when Poe's arrival is there, the sun is starting to peek through the clouds and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
that's
very symbolic with weather and stuff like that, but
over the
for,
course of the night.
yeah.
Well,
Not
even
or go ahead.
Poe with sunlight during the event, the Dragon Warrior event, the whole what when
Yeah.
Poe said what, the background lit.
Yeah,
There was a visible change of light when he said what. It didn't do that to anybody else.
yeah,
I
I can
don't
agree
really
with
know
that.
why.
Well, he's the hero, the light falls, and it's pretty basic symbology. They don't really I don't really have to think too hard
When he
about that.
says what,
Yeah, that's still true.
something
It's
magical
still
about what.
yeah, yeah, it's still like, what? Like, he's now the center stage. He's supposed to be the hero of the story, and it doesn't make sense to him. It's comedic, but it's still part of the
Well,
symbolism.
it would have been better when he was announced as the warrior that the sun would get brighter. I think than just what and then a light change. But
And it tells you how nitpicky we're being because it's a good movie. um, yeah, I don't have an issue, obviously.
Same could be said again
uh,
when they're going to the training and Shifu's up on top of the rock, like by the sacred pool, saying this is where Kung Fu was made, trained, and the sun is directly on Poe.
oh yeah, when he grabbing his heart and realizing where he is.
Yeah. Also, another
that
thing
was a
with that, I
problem I had. Yeah.
oh
Go ahead.
problem.
Yeah. Oh, you were about to say something. Or
Oh,
do you
I
want
was
me to say my?
I was just gonna say I really like the little detail of don't wash your pits in the sacred pool of the pool of sacred tears, followed after with Poe starting to cry and giving tears to the sacred pool, like that's where he is.
He's a huge nerd. He just realizes like where he is. Yeah, that's kind of how I would feel if I ever stepped on a real life Millennium Falcon. But
Yeah, that is my core issue of him not realizing where he was. This we get a shot of this is
he knows what
behind.
it is, but he doesn't know where it
Yeah,
is.
it's
As
foggy.
far as I get the impression.
We see a shot of them walking behind the temple. So this is behind the temple, and I feel like he would know that it's behind the temple. He might not know the exact mountain it is at or anything like that, but he would know the sacred the pool of sacred tears is back here. So it seems like Poe knowledge, and that he would have.
Yeah, the only benefit to him in this scene is that it's very foggy until it's not.
Yeah, as soon as he realizes where he is and Shifu jumps up on a rock, it's bright sunny day.
So I'm fine with him not knowing because he can't beat the weather, I guess. Um, yeah, but like I said, I would have an issue. I guess I would have an issue if it was sunny when they arrived and he didn't know where they were.
All right, we'll chop it up to the weather moving around a lot. It's a test.
Yeah.
It's weathering with you again. I wonder what those kids are up to.
Oh, that was controlled. That had little things here and there of why. This doesn't give us a why.
Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny. Ooh. Blame Zane. Zane's causing all the weather stuff. Little nitpick I'll touch on, and I don't know if it's just mass or a difference, but when Poe at the very beginning falls off of the charred chair and lands where Uwe points at him, there's not a crack or a crevice or crater or anything in the ground caused by Poe's fall.
When
However,
it's consistently he causes that later on in the film.
what I
Yeah.
was going to bring up when he fights Tylun at the end and Tylun falls from the sky, he creates a crater of his body silhouette in the ground.
Vastly different heights. You could see Poe from the ground. Meanwhile, Tai Lung was gone. he,
That's
he entered the
true.
atmosphere. It was two different heights. I don't have an issue with it.
Okay.
And even if you timed it, you would know it's also
I
different time.
okay. I saw it in a
So
like body density situation or something.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
the problem I have
I
with
mean,
Poe in
it's
general
it's it's
is
comedic rules. It's comedic animation rules. I don't really. It's hard to describe rules to them, so I'm just gonna shrug.
like Poe's supposed to be this fat, heavy animal, yet Mantis picks him up, but Mantis is extraordinarily strong with the bridge. Shifu flings him around doing like he's absolutely nothing. So it's a little wobbly with the weight he has.
Yeah, well, I mean, besides another thing too is that the Kung Fu warriors are supposed to be like super special. That's why I said Kung Fu is essentially a magic system because they're all essentially superheroes.
During the celebration, the geese can't pick him up, but the pigs can. But then at the end, the pigs can't pick him up. So are we just supposed to assume he gained weight between the event and the end?
Yeah, well, those were citizen pigs. They weren't Kung Fu temple pigs. You
Yeah.
know.
They weren't lifting weights.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's any guard pigs or anything. That's a thought I had early on during the Dragon Warrior celebration thing. There was two ducks on like every other step going up the stairs of the temple where Shifu and Ugo were walking down, and I went, "Oh, all these guards. I don't think a single one is guard. I think they're all just servants because it's the Valley of Peace."
Yeah, I think they're attendants. Yeah, I didn't take them as guards and stuff like that because they have superheroes living in town. What do you need guards for? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and we don't
Yeah,
really see them past the celebration. So.
Well, I'll admit I'm reaching the ends of my notes here. How are you guys looking?
got a couple more, I think.
All right,
Okay,
Crimson. How about
I
you?
do as well.
All right, then Springs, take it away.
Um, the detail of Shifu planting a peach seed.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, I mean, just to show strength of Shifu to Oogway conveying himself of like, you know, how do I describe it? It's him being like, it's just a peach seed, it's nothing. Like we have control of dropping all the peaches at once if we want, and Oogway just saying, in return, no matter how much you try, which I think is also on to Poe. Like Poe is the seed and will grow over time if it's treated and cared for. Of no matter how much you want it to be a apple, I think he says apple or orange, it'll be a peach, which I think is saying no matter how much you want it to be tigress or at one point Tai Lun, it's going to be Poe, which
Yeah.
goes into the after credit scene of it growing with the presence of Shifu with Poe,
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
which
Yeah.
also
Good
falls
stuff.
onto how many of us watched the after credit scene.
I
I mean,
know I've seen it
I saw
before,
it.
but
So.
I know I've seen it before. Just don't remember it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. It wasn't going to be anything I was going to bring up. But yeah, it was there. A continuity with the tree that I did like, and I originally thought it was going to help with the timeline, but then I thought later, oh shoot, it didn't help with the timeline. It just means something else. Is later Shifu's on the cliffside next to the tree, sad Uguay's gone,
Yeah, with the red
conflicted
sun.
on what he needs to do, and the tree is bare. There's no leaves or petals or anything. I'm like, oh, okay, so we got a time jump. That's nice. And then like, no, Uguay literally took every single petal with him into space. So that didn't help with my time jump I was looking for. I guess good continuity on them. I guess the the tree being bare from that scene.
It's to encompass the fact that Poe's a panda bear, so it's Poe taking over. That's completely made up and just came out of my ass. So
I didn't even understand it either.
that the tree is bare and Poe's a bear,
Oh,
so Poe's
Oh,
I
presence.
no, you went
did
dad
not
joke
connect
level with
that.
that. All right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
Sorry, we don't do dad jokes much here on the podcast, so I have to get out of my current frame of mind to get
sorry,
them.
Not the Prince of Bad
Yeah.
Jokes usually.
Uh,
I like the little detail
uh,
of Poe's shadow at the very end in the mist, uh, lining up with that version of what he sees himself in his dream.
The Dragon Warrior.
yeah. My only criticism slash nitpick of the scene is obviously the apron would not fly out that far.
No, it wouldn't.
But otherwise, yeah, I do like the visual as well. Crimson, why don't you give us some of your remaining points?
It's a compliment to Jack Black. Uh,
Oh,
in particular, his imitation of Shifu during the dinner. He
Dustin Hoffman,
sounded,
you mean?
yeah, he sounded just like Dustin Hoffman, uh, and it was pretty good. It was a good impersonation.
I kind of happy you brought up this scene because I love that scene. Uh,
Well, you love table scenes.
I do. It's because it's an opportunity for character to shine with no other distractions. Obviously, this is meant to be Poe's exaggerating his story because he's trying to be cool in front of the five, and he's
How'd you get out there
also
alive? Well, I was just
yeah,
thinking about it.
yeah, exactly. Uh, and then I like that uh, the ones that are warming up to him the most are the ones that are eating his soup. And obviously, Tigris is still the coldest one with him. And one of the key character aspects that shows up here in this scene is that Tigris, he's like, kind of pokes fun at him for being glutton because, the Dragon Warrior can survive on nothing but the dew of a ginkgo leaf and the energy of the universe. That's that line. And then Poe immediately diffuses with a joke, which is, for me, that's a testament to who Poe is as a character. He doesn't like confrontation that much. Um, but it also is like how he deals with, you know, adversarialism from people he looks up to in that moment. Because, at least he's earning the respect of the others, at least a little bit. They're starting to tolerate him a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess a more simplified thing to also go into it is that Poe made the soup, and they said it's all great, but then he said, "No, it's not my dad's with the secret ingredient." But there was no secret ingredient, so he made his dad's soup, which is great.
Yep.
Which is in a way the Dragon Scroll saying there's no special ingredient itself in the Dragon Warrior.
It's the
So it
theme of the
yeah,
movie.
so it can be the or the Furious Four at that point, the ones eating it, saying that it's great, which goes in context of Poe being great.
Yeah, they're like I said, they're starting to warm up to him because uh, I'm still thinking about what you said about Crane about that scene of they don't interact with their fans all that much. I didn't really read that into the scene before. I've been kind of think that's been on the back burner of my mind. I sort of see a little bit of what you mean now as to why they are starting to warm up to Poe a little bit because Poe's not
Well, yeah,
doing
I
anything to like
if the interaction of that scene with Crane was with Tigress, I don't think it would have been the same. Tigress is the most
No, it
coldest
wouldn't.
against him. I
yeah
think if it was with Viper, Mantis, Crane, or I mean, I guess any of the rest of them, it still played out kind of the same because they're all in that same mindset that none of them were chosen for the Dragon Warrior. It's Poe. They're all disappointed of that day, but more so of Tigress.
yeah because Tigers did think it was going to be her because obviously Uguay was lining up towards her. Um, so she's has a reason to be more the most disappointed of the group, but they're all disappointed because it's Poe, not one of them who's been training for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Um, Another small detail about this scene I really liked was Mantis is the one that makes the Shifu joke first, and then Poe just runs with it because Mantis.
Oh.
Yeah, because one of the things, one of the character traits I really like about Mantis is the jokester. He's the one that says the jokes more often than not within the group. He finishes the joke that Crane starts when they're walking away and Poe overhears them. And earlier in the film, whereas one would think Master Shifu or Master Uga would choose someone who actually knew Kung Fu before the whole evening scene.
Yeah.
Crane says half a joke. Mantis is the one that finishes it, and then Mantis is the one that starts the joke here, which is for me is enough for me to extrapolate who Mantis is as a character. He's the fun one of the group, and also that's kind of what lends to why he's also the one that and trying to help Poe with the acupuncture. It turns into comedy, but he's genuinely trying to help him because he's endeared to him.
Yeah. I'm thinking that's a way for a comfortability of Poe being incorporated in the group by doing something the group already does, by starting a joke and
Yeah,
being finished by someone. Now, it could be
yeah,
seen also by probably from Tigress's eyes as stepping on someone's toes because that's what Mantis does.
A little bit, yes. One of the things that another detail I like is that Viper shuts Mantis's jokes down when he gets to be too much. Like, when Mantis is like, he's not going to stop bouncing, I'll tell you that. He starts laughing, and Viper is the
Yeah.
one that hisses at him. Man, I'm just covering all my character work right now. I need to save stuff for the summary. Um, but again, one of my favorite comedic beats is when Shifu sees him doing the interruption. Sees him doing the impression, and he runs off, and Shifu doesn't notice him until he's gone because he has to fight Tai Lung. It was just a I don't know a beautiful scene. Like it's a very good character scene that leads into an even that with comedy that leads into a very good character scene with a lot of weight to it between Dustin Hoffman and Jack Black playing off each other when Shifu's not letting him leave the mountain.
yeah.
Those scenes are juxtaposed to each other, and it's great.
Yeah, a scene I've always, or a bit I'd want interjected into this scene that I've wanted for a while is Tigress eating the noodles in the background. Just like she tries it once and her eyes widen, and that's it. Nothing more.
Yeah,
Because
I would
she's
agree with
reserved.
that.
She doesn't want to give away anything of herself. So it being in the background would be nice because everyone's like gushing over. Oh, these are amazing, great. She would just do it when no one's looking, and I think that would be a nice addition.
Yeah, I would have loved that as an after credit scene too. Even that's what we got, and we don't have a scene of that in the second film, do we?
I don't know.
Um, she's more engaged with the, yeah,
Yeah, she's more
uh,
engaged, but I don't. I'm trying to think of like that payoff that we would want from her trying the
yeah,
noodles. Yeah, I agree. I would have liked that in the film as well.
yeah, good little
It wasn't
background
needed,
character
but it's
bit.
definitely something I wanted to see.
Yeah. With the noodles, uh, I just find it really hard to believe that all these years of Poe working at the noodle shop, he never saw his dad make noodles from start to finish.
Well, then
But
again,
so where's the secret ingredient? There never was
he
one.
never questions why he's a panda.
Oh yeah, he's dumb that way. But he's passionate and he's good at making noodles. And he knows his dad's recipe. He would have seen his dad make it, so he'd be like, "Well, where's the recipe? The secret recipe or ingredient? Where is it?" I think that's a potential issue.
You know what? I
uh,
just connected the dots on something. Not on what you just said. Sorry, Crimson.
Yeah,
Um, just a little thing I connected right there is a parallel that Poe and Tylon are both orphans.
yeah.
yep, that's true. That's spoilers. What are you talking about, Springs?
Well, just the
It's
difference in
completely. It's he's clearly his father. I don't know what you're talking
no,
about.
Clearly,
just the difference in what can change a character by on how they're raised by a father
Yeah,
figure, which is I guess going into Poe's dad. He doesn't have a name. It's just Poe's dad and Shifu.
yeah. I th- I want to say his name is Ping. That sounds right.
that does sound right. I, I know in the second
Um,
one they call him Mr. Ping. Tigers calls him that. I don't remember if they say Ping in this.
yeah, I don't think it's this one that we can learn his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's called Mr. Ping, and we don't really. Yeah, but yeah, I see where you're connecting to as far as your parallel is there, Springs, and that's a really cool parallel. I like it.
His name, Poe's name is Poe Ping.
I guess if he's referred to as Mr. Ping, I guess that would be Poe's
Is
last
that a
name.
Well,
is that a
uh,
toilet humor joke of pooping?
no. Poping was an actual name that's means something. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Okay, I didn't know if this was a Lord Farquaad situation.
It was a fun fact I skipped over. Hold on, let me find it.
Okay. Uh, Franks, what do you think of the noodle point I made while he's looking at that?
The noodle point made.
Yes, of what how Poe never watched his dad make
Oh, that one. Gotcha.
noodles.
Yeah. Um, I mean,
I find
I
that quite far fetched.
in the sense that he never picked up, like, his dad never adding a secret ingredient or something he's unaware of, like, his dad never opened a jar and hid it around Poe or something along those lines, yes. But never, I mean, he's seen his dad make noodles. He's just never seen
Yeah,
his dad added this secret ingredient before because he doesn't know what it is.
I'm
yeah,
back. I've got the actual fact up now
got
again.
the
I didn't
deets.
I didn't I didn't think it would come up. So,
Mhm.
Po's full name is Po Ping or Bao Ping in Mandarin, which means precious peace.
Okay.
And it's fitting for Poe's more peaceful persona, but it's mostly for his father, who calls him Xiaopo, which is also a little precious piece, to kind of illustrate the point of their relationship really quickly through their names. Meaning that how his father actually thinks of Poe is that he founds Poe as precious peace, and that lends to all the whole his journey in bringing peace to the valley, peace to uh, Shifu. It was a very well thought out thing.
Okay, not a poop joke.
We
Got
almost
it.
missed it.
Yeah, we almost missed it. I didn't think I'd bring it up because as you said, I read that I'm like, that's nah, I'm not gonna bring it up. But since you brought it up,
Uh,
um,
for- yeah, right. What do you think of the noodle thing?
um, yeah, I'm gonna have to sit on that one because I don't know how to incorporate a fix in the film
Yeah, are you
if it's a problem.
agreeing with that? It's kind of a problem then, if it requires
If
a
it's a
fix.
problem, there's no easy fix for it. Is kind of where I'm leaning on it. Um,
I can see it in one instance where Poe asked and his dad goes, "It's a secret. I can't tell you. And when you're old enough, I will tell you." And that's where Poe dropped it, and he just keeps it
maybe
at that.
I
if
mean,
they
that's
we had
verbally,
like
but he watches him make it.
if we had a childhood thing with Poe, like his dad puts the whole, recipe in like a jar, that sort of thing, and his dad's the one to read the recipe, then I guess that would kind of work. But with what we have, I think it's fine. I don't see an issue with it. I could just infer that he was not observant enough to do that because he's too focused on kung fu and stuff like that. He's clearly hyper
Well,
focusing on other things.
the problem is if he sees him make one dish of noodles, because he knows the recipe to make it, as we see at the table. He knows his father's recipe minus the secret ingredient. So if he
Mhm.
watches dad from start to end, where he's like, "All right, we got noodles, water, butter,
It
garlic, uh,
it
whatever
helps that he's the
else."
one waiting tables most of the time.
That's also if he's making the secret ingredient ramen or soup, because it kind of
Oh,
sounds
like
like when
his
Poe makes for the Fierce Five, like he's like, "Oh yeah, this is soup I make at home, but it's not my dad's secret ingredient one," which kind of
oh,
indicates
like
to
they
me
take
there's
turns making batches of soup.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it tells me there's different things they sell than just the one secret ingredient soup.
So he's not allowed to make secret ingredient soup. Is what you're saying?
could be.
Oh, for
Like
Poe,
it could be a
possibly.
menu thing. You know, get
I just can't believe
food
he's
from.
been doing this for years and not see it. I can't get past that.
I don't. I'm not. I'm not. I don't have enough strong enough issue to
I
to speak on
Yeah,
it.
I
To be
think it
honest.
goes in the little aid that there's nothing to see.
Yeah, we have
The
virtually.
absence of it would be glaring. Is the point?
I guess the one thing is Poe doesn't take the ramen he makes and his dad's secret ingredient ramen and put them side by side and be like, "What's the difference?" There's no that. I mean, being such a connoisseur of food and what really drives him, he doesn't try them both and say there's no difference to know. That I can see is fishy.
Well, and are you implying that the dad's noodles and Poe's noodles are two separate orders on the menu?
Yeah,
Wouldn't the customers be able to taste that it's the same dish and
I
then
don't
have
know.
complaints.
I I
I don't.
do not know.
I never made the suggestion that that's what they did.
I
I
just know
just.
Poe makes ramen for the Furious Five, and he makes ramen at the home in the kitchen. So I'm sure there's more than just one thing. I mean, he even brings up to his dad. He's like the during the beginning when he wants to talk about being a kung fu master. He brings up the I forget the buns or whatever. They're gonna go stale. So they sell other things than just the ramen.
Yeah, and I didn't claim that they didn't. All
I'm just
right.
going into this that not every single batch of
Yeah.
soup has the secret
I'm
ingredient.
my. I guess my whole stick here is I'm trying to figure out best to phrase this. Uh, uh, it's a can be a problem, sure, but it wouldn't matter to the film at all whether he figured it out then or not. The lesson would still be the same.
Yeah, I think even if Poe like confronted his dad and being like, over the years I've tried both like everything on our menu and your soup tastes almost equal to mine and it's like I don't know what it is and then that's when he reveals it. I mean, still it's the same message being across that there is nothing. It's just the way it's in the film is going down the track that's kind of red herring you to be like why Poe's a panda and doesn't line up with his dad and then he goes into the secret ingredient. At least that's how I took it.
Oh yeah, the father thing is supposed to be a red herring. Kind
Yeah.
of comedic, but
Yeah. I would say it is comedic. Yeah.
Uh, well, any other points, gentlemen?
No, I had one, but you answered it in the beginning facts. I was just curious if every single fighting technique in the movie is kung fu, or if there's things like taekwondo or mixed martial arts thrown in with the animation technique. But you said it was all trained by the
Yeah.
voice
Uh,
actors and the animators. So
yeah, there is styles based off of animals. So like the Viper style is obviously in the character Viper. There's kind of more of a animalistic style for Monkey. So yeah, they have different kung fu techniques for each character pertaining to the who they are.
yes, but every choreographed move is a kung fu fighting style.
We'll give it a nod.
Presumably, yes.
Got it.
My last point was when Shifu and Poe are talking, like, how are you going to turn this into the Dragon Warrior? I don't know. Which is a good scene. I don't think we talked really on that one, but
I
good
touched
stuff.
upon it, but yes.
And we see that Tigress was overhearing it, or at least overlooking it. And she has this face and then turns to then go confront Tai Lung. What's her face? What do you guys think her face was there? Because I read like 50 things on it. I don't know what it was supposed to convey.
Without a visual aid, I can't remember.
Uh, I got mixed feelings, so maybe the 50 things that you thought was probably what she was going through. um, yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it. I saw mixed feelings. I saw a bunch of different things in that face because she's conflicted about the choice she's about to make. She feels bad for Poe. She feels bad for Shifu. She knows the horrible situation they're in. Tai Lung is coming. She's got a lot on her mind. I'm more than happy to have a face with mixed emotions.
Okay.
So I can't tell you because I don't remember it, but I that's would be my takeaway from her in that scene. From what I'm little imagining of it right now, because I do remember some of it, but I don't know if it's as clear in my mind as I as it was.
All right. So that was my last point, I think.
Well,
Oh,
I
no. One more.
it was
You
one
liar.
more.
One last one for now. The ending with Shifu lying on the ground. It's
Good
a
fake out.
it's a funny ending. I like it.
I'm
Is it
dying, you
a
idiot.
good ending though?
I think so, yeah.
Is it a good ending to this film?
Shifu finally found peace.
Yeah, their arcs are done.
And
And
the
can't
ending
really ask
line
for more.
of Poe, he's like, "Okay, I'll do what Master's doing." And he goes, "I'm hungry. You want to get food?"
Yeah, I think it's sweet. I think it's good.
The only
I don't necessarily need bookmarked endings, so I liked it.
the only
I
slight
wish the
thing I
5
have
was
with
there.
that, and I think it's okay and believable, but I'm unsure if Poe's shadow would cast more of a shadow on Shifu. I don't know how the lighting lines up correctly.
Well, the lighting
Uh,
in the temple's already a little iffy on lighting sources.
Yeah.
when the sun is out, you have to remember there's multiple entrances, so it's not just the front. There's like side
Yes, but they
openings to the
they
pool.
cast shadows. Poe's shadow is casting onto Shifu's,
Oh, then I have no
but
idea.
Shifu is not encased in shadow in any part on his body. So I think it's okay because the angle of the sun by the front door might be high enough that it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, do you think the 5 should have shown up at the temple with them?
No,
Because I
I
mean,
don't get me wrong.
yeah, so
I would love it
fine.
as a fan, but I don't think it's needed.
no. I think the connection of Shifu and Poe is a stronger part than all of them present. It was like we're all a big team.
They bowed in respect to a great
The
master.
Poe, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't think that was needed. I see what you're getting at Crow Crimson. I would think that they would be worried about Shifu as well.
yeah,
That's at
especially
least
after
that's
seeing Poe's reaction, like Shifu, which would be like,
yeah.
oh, something's wrong with Shifu.
Yeah. I think that I would like to see something there. I don't think it's needed because the presumption is they just help the villagers and then run up the mountain because they trust Poe at this point enough to go check on their master.
Brain could have picked him up and flown him to the top.
No, and they got to
Seemed
stay in the
urgent.
village anyhow. They got to clean up Tylon. It's the messiest part.
So yeah, if that's the angle you're going for, Crimson, I definitely understand that point. It's not needed, but I definitely would find it preferable. I don't know if it would be. I don't know if it's an objective problem though.
Just seems like an absence of their characters, of what we understand them to be. They they really respect and like their mentor. They were pretty much raised with by him, at least Tigers. And at the hint of anything wrong with him from Poe's reaction, I feel like they would go for it.
That does make sense, but I think that would also weaken the overall one-on-one ending bit with Shifu and
It
Poe.
would, but
But it would fit
it
the characters of the Furious Five more.
yeah. Would you sacrifice the five's characters for that scene, or would you change the scene to incorporate the five?
Because if the five were there, it just feels like the third wheeling.
If they kept the scene the same, yeah, they would be weird. They'd have to
Yeah,
come up with something else.
yeah. They just keep
But
reusing that loop of animation. I think it's
it just
fine.
seems like an absence that shouldn't be there. Even
Yeah.
though the scene is funny, I do like the scene. It's just weird that they're not there.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna shut this down as a small problem. Yeah. The five's characters are damaged a little bit by not being in the scene, even though the scene overall is good. It's just their absence damages the characters because they would care about Shifu.
It strengthens their characters, but I think it would dampen the scene.
Yeah.
The scene,
The
it would
scene
have
would
to be
have to
rewritten.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the scene would have to change if the five were being included. It cannot continue the way it is.
No, where they're just standing at the doorway.
Yeah, yeah. I would have preferred even that
Well, what if
even
Poe?
as if it ends with them getting up in the five or walking through the door to see if they're
Well,
okay.
what if
I would be
Poe
okay with that
laid
too.
down next to Shifu, and then it paused for a little bit, and then the Furious Five all came in, and they all started laying down themselves around them all, and then Poe openly to everyone said, "Are you hungry?"
and
That
they
would
all
work.
laugh together.
I
Yeah,
could see that. That would be funny. They weren't involved in the scene at all, but they overheard everything, so they just kind of sit down and enjoy it. That would maintain the comedy of it. Sure.
I guess
yeah.
that can aid to
Uh,
it. That means they're still coming there. Poe got there first, which I the only problem I guess
somehow,
is speed. Yeah, Poe got there first. He did get the one-on-one with Shifu, but they're still
Like I said,
present to get to
we
check
can
on him.
yeah, like we can assume that the Furious Five had stuff to do in the village, so them being delayed is fine. but they still would have been there at the end, I think.
Yeah, they could come in the door and like, all right, village seems to be under control. How are you, Shifu? And they're laying on the ground. Po just taps the ground, like join us type deal or something.
Yeah.
I mean, at that angle, looking from the front door, they wouldn't even see Shufu.
Yeah,
Poe's stomach is
that would be a good visual gag.
Barricades
Shifu
That'd be
pops
gone.
his
funny.
head over the belly or something. Uh,
That'd be
yeah,
funny. We're writing some comedy here at the end
It's just a
for
way to tweak it, so it's not the character
yeah.
damage or the ending scene, the one-on-one
Yeah,
thing.
we don't want to take away the comedy of the ending scene, but we also want to save the Furious 5 characters. I'm okay with that.
But
Yeah.
again, with what we do have, does weaken the characters of Furious 5 a tad.
Yep. I would agree with that.
I'm
And
glad I realized that at the very end.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. All right.
that is hopefully my last point.
All right. Well, with that, shall we move into ratings, gentlemen?
sure.
Yep, we're
All
ready.
right. Well, Crimson, since you had the last point, I figure you should start us off today.
Oh, then I should be the last one to say. All right. I will start with my subjective. Yeah, that's a good one. I've seen it potentially in the double digits, as I said in the beginning. It's a movie I will continue to see. I'll at some point in my life. Uh, the sequels. I mean, this movie incentivizes me to see everything. I do want to see the third one. I just haven't done it, and the fourth
Rewatching
one's
it for the
coming out.
yeah, rewatching for the pod has incentivized you to continue on.
Yeah, I wouldn't need to go back to the show, even though it's good. I do think the show is solid. So obviously, I do enjoy this film, and I've been bouncing back and forth between 8 and 8.5, and going to stick with 8. I know, I know. I might have to look at my numbers and be like, does this match your other 8s? I'll see. But I'm feeling an 8 right now. Could potentially get risen in the recap. We'll see. Objectively, I threw out a lot of stuff at the wall. Not all of them stuck. It is largely a very well written movie, as we brought up earlier, or as Sprink brought up earlier with Ryder. So I was trying to keep an eye out on everything on this one, because I know going in it was going to be hard to find issues with this one. I was trying to be vigilant.
Mm.
Uh, so ob- objectively, I am giving it 8.5, pretty high, even with all the issues I was throwing at the wall. I think Tai Lung's nerve attack inconsistency with, is it Uguay's, is it not? How'd he learn it if it isn't? All that is too blurry when it doesn't need to be. And we tried to work around stuff for that. Not the largest issue, but it is there. The looping animation, you're going to find that in a lot of stuff, especially if it's in a background. So it's not that big of a problem, but it is present nonetheless. I think all the voice acting's good. Some could say wasted, with a few members of the Furious Five. I think Lucy Liu as Viper was kind of wasted. She's one of the sideline 5 to me, and Jackie Chang uh, as Monkey sidelined, but they still did good with what little they had. The animation overall does look good. I think it does look better than 2008. I think it was a little ahead of its time when it came out. Tai Lung and Shifu, wonderful dynamic, probably the best part of the movie. I guess something for the subjective I didn't say. Poe, I think, is the perfect balance for me personally for comedy, because I think if they went well with him, I'd find him annoying, but less than it would weaken his character. So I think they found the right amount of humor for Poe. The whole ending bit with the visioning of the dumpling, obviously, I have a differing opinion on
Common
that
cookie, but
one.
yes.
Yes. What did I say?
You said dumpling.
He said dumpling.
Dumpling, yeah, whatever. There's a dumpling in this movie somewhere. Yes, the cookie. Uh, it pains me to put it my objective as a flaw, but I honestly do think it is, and we talked heavily about it. So that is part of the 1.5 tick down from a 10. That is in there. But overall, it's not that flawed of a film. And obviously, the 5 at the end, I brought up as an issue. I think for their characters, I agree it's not massive, but it is still an
Definitely a
issue
Nick.
to be marked. And the time frame for travel, we couldn't pin down anything exact because there's not much to go on. Even my tree observation is very weak to go off of because they're a different kind of trees. So even then, it's not consistent if they change colors or not. I have no idea. So I do wish they could have done that. But I don't know if it's necessary. Hmm, yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's more to talk for you guys.
Well, all right then. Sprinks.
That's me. I guess I'll go next. I'll start with my subjective. I like this movie. I've seen it before. I'll probably see it again. I recommend it, and it's a good starting movie. Like it's a good number one movie to get you into a trilogy and beyond. Like it keeps going. Same could be said about How to Train Your Dragon and Shrek. And is there another example of a DreamWorks film with trilogy? If you want to go with Trolls, you can. That one didn't really click with me. Um, but I enjoy the film. I find it fun. I give it a 7.5. Objectively, this one's going to be a bit of a shocker. I think the voice work is pretty much phenomenal. They got a lot of big names too, which is great and all. But again, with what Crimson said, there's a lot of parts where some of the voice actors don't have much lines to say. And I think that kind of falls onto the Fears 5. I think Jackie Chan only had maybe 3 or 4 lines throughout the whole film, aside from some not fully, but
Laughing or
yeah,
noises.
grunts. I think most of it fell onto Jack Black and Dustin Hoffman as Shifu and Poe. Jack Black, I think, is a great voice to go through Poe, which matches the comedy and the seriousness through his own acting of himself in live action roles, expressed through Poe as an anime character. I think really fits. Dustin Hoffman, I think, is an exceptional, wonderful actor, and this is just another tick of something he can do differently that he can still get done from the range he has. And it's always nice to see Ian McShane and more things for me. Um, so just all that, I think the actors are great and the voice acting for them work well. I really like the animation, especially the fur. The fur of the hair on Tai Lun and Shifu and Poe and Tigress and even on Monkey, just the detailing of it reminds me very much of Monsters Inc. with Sully, and each hair was individually animated in it, which is why one of my biggest gripes for Monsters University is Sully looks like a block of clay because they didn't have that at all. And this movie reminisced that to me of the detailing and the fur of the animation. And that just goes into the animation for me looking very nice and beautiful. It doesn't have to be vibrant at all times, but everyone has, a standout color to them. The town is nice and sunny. There's a lot of sun, which is the lighting sense. It's animated, so it's hard. It's hard. A little more difficult for me to go on my scaling of everything of that. But a lot of natural lighting of sun. There's some lightings of what are they, like lanterns? I guess lanterns, torches that reflect and bounce off of things. I think the torch light in the prison should have been a little more flickery with shadows when it's kind of just consistent on Zane and the Rhino and Tylon and all that. Let's see here. Writing, I think it's wonderfully written. I love all the callbacks and everything. My smooth brain can actually get that for a kids movie, and it just connects for me. So I do really enjoy that. I've given it my little nitpicks, a little of the lighting thing. I don't know about the ending Shifu lighting. That could be a little off on the characters and situations. Um, I brought up the Tylon thing. He's still my favorite character, but writer said 70-30. I'm saying 60-40. could be 65-35. Who knows? Whatever. Um, but that thrown out there. So little things here and there. But I still think it's wonderfully done and a really good animated film. I'm giving it a 9.
They're giving it high bars this one, huh? All right. Well, I guess leaves me. Um, I'm gonna do world building first. Instead of yeah, I always do typically plot or world building first, but I'm gonna do my objective first. Um, I think the world building is very well characterized for what it's trying to do. Obviously, there's issues with physics and stuff like that, but it's always pertains to. There's always a give and take when it comes to animation. For example, Spider Verse is trying to be somewhat realistic with its physics, even though it's crazy whatever when that film what that film tries to do. This one, for example, is definitely going more a cartoonish kind of physics, which I think definitely lends to some of the strengths of both of the comedy and some of the things that happen to the characters and stuff like that. Um, and as far as the world building works, you beyond just like the physical aspect of it in terms of the story, I think we understand the valley very well by the end. It's we don't get much of it per se, but it's still very well characterized. It's obviously kind of feudal ancient times, with kung fu being the what elevates people to kind of a pseudo superhero status. Um, and we kind of get the depiction of, I guess, what that life is sort of like, in some parts, in the very beginning at least. It's not there in its entirety, but enough is conveyed for us to understand the world, and the importance of like kung fu masters in it. Um, and obviously that goes into Tai Lung a little bit, where there's this super evil villain, but they've locked him up in a prison far, far away, and in the hopes that he'll never come back. And to be frank, no one really expected him to come back. Um, and I think the use of animals as well is kind of poignant on what their kung fu styles are. I know Dustin Hoffman requested to be an endangered rare species of panda, pretty much. So his choice of the Shifu character is Dustin Hoffman's choice. That's what he wanted to be. Um, and I think a lot of that lends to a lot of the strengths of the film, because the world building is the weakest parts of the world building is the time factor that Crimson brought up, and the yeah, no, I think it's just the time factor. I know. Did you mention another one, Crimson, or is that just the main one?
Uh, the travel time, pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right. The time travel time, yeah,
Distance. Yeah.
distance. That's kind of on the weaker end. It's but that being said, it's still an incredibly well paced film, um, which lends, I guess, a little bit into the plot. The plot is pretty much pretty much Shifu and Poe centric, and that's not a bad thing. I think the character stories revolving around them are really great. And Tai Lung is a very interesting character to talk about when talking about plot, but because Tai Lung is just kind of Tai Lung is the antagonist, so his direct correlation to the plot is the ever building tension that he is going to come and destroy the valley and defeat Shifu, take the Dragon Scroll, yada yada. um, and but it works to its strength. The plot's very well paced. Uh, I didn't really get to talk about it. I think the training montage was done really, really well for Poe, because halfway through the montage you can see him having improved a little bit, but he's still not great. So it's not a 100% jump to I'm a kung fu master in an instant, which is very nice. Um, and yeah, I don't think I have much to say on the plot other than I think it's very well paced, and how it ties the scenes together, I think is very important for the feelings that those scenes are trying to convey to the audience and what themes slash messages, the dialogue, characters. It's all being very well conveyed. Um, so guess I'm gonna go through my character list from I guess weakest to strongest. I have Monkey at the bottom. Um, Monkey, at least in terms of my observing of the film, was the first to notice that Poe won't quit. He also likes to meditate at night, and he's the only one that explicitly helps an individual outside of the five, whether Tigress is giving everybody breakdown of plans at the end. So I have an inkling of understanding for who the character is. I'm in agreement. He's probably criminally that Jackie Chan is criminally underutilized. Because there's not really much to the Furious Five, and I think Monkey being the weakest in terms of is the weakest in terms of characterizations. With Viper going next, but Viper has a few other things that I think helps her out. Um, Viper reins Mantis in when Mantis jokes go too far. Uh, she's the one to explain to Tigress that the five are going with her, and I think those to me explain that while she has a bit of a sarcastic wit to her, I think she is one of the she's a little bit above Monkey for me in that I understand at least it at least comes across to me she's the most caring of the group. Like she's the one that's looking after everyone's health and stuff like that, or at least their mental state and stuff like that. Uh, then we go to uh, Crane. Crane is kind of a might be Crimson's least favorite, but I think he is the best of the three sideline characters. Um, sorry, did you want to interject?
No, that was a laugh.
Okay, sorry. Um, he doesn't want to be outright mean to Poe, at least to his face. He's not the one to finish any of the harsh jokes that uh, he starts them, Bantis finishes them, that sort of thing. He's a bit of a rule follower, as characterized in the scene where they're not supposed to talk about Tai Lung, and he also really likes Poe's food, which is a character trait all of them share except for Tigress at this point. And I think he's spared by Tai Lung by simply because he could just fly up and be out of Tai Lung's reach, or Tai Lung explicitly chose to spare him. Either case, it makes sense for him to be the one to bring the five back, whether it be an explicit choice in Tai Lung's hand or he just kind of waited Tai Lung out. Um, and that goes to Mantis. He's the biggest Joker, uh, probably the most amenable of all the characters. He apologizes to Poe without necessarily explicitly stating "I'm sorry," and he's much stronger than he looks for his size. So there's a lot of themes that could be extrapolated from that if people are looking for that. Um, but again, I think he's well characterized, even if there's not much going on. Tigress is the most familiar with Shifu's history, as far as I understand it. She's kind of the ringleader of the Furious Five. She's the first one to tell Poe properly about Tai Lung and Shifu, like overriding everybody else. She doesn't even try to keep it a secret. She explains why Shifu dislikes him and why they all have a problem with Poe, because she's very blunt as a character. And even as others gradually warm up to Poe, she still kind of keeps her distance. And she is not afraid to lie to Tai Lung's face, which I'm totally okay with. And she's the de facto. The reason that lends to me of why she's the de facto leader to the five is she's the one that delegates tasks when they have to evacuate the valley. All that speaks to me is Tigress has a bit of a journey on her own, but I think it's very subtle in terms of what's going on with her. I think was she was Shifu's best student, and obviously there was part of her that expected to be picked as the Dragon Warrior, with how Oogway was angling his finger. So a lot of her I guess character work is, again, it's very subtle, but I think a lot of it's just coming to terms with her role more or less in not being the dragon warrior and having to come to terms with that. Um, and she's also, I think she's the most blunt of the group, which I think helps. I think I repeated myself a lot. Christ. Okay. Uh, Uguay. Uh, Very simply characterized. Has visions. Has a sixth sense of some kind. He's very wise, and he's supposed to be the archetypal mentor character, possibly evil, if we're going to go with Crimson's suggestions.
Certainly
Um,
evil.
uh, and yeah, he it's cliche. He dies after giving sage advice. It's the hero's journey. The mentor dies halfway through with Uguay. It's not bad by any means, but it's very archetypal. He's a serviceable character in the story, um, and he's also there to push Shifu moving forward in his character arc. I think that leaves the big three being no, I got Ping, Mr. Ping. Um, he's a man of noodle folk, hard worker, inherited the family business, gave up his dream to live a simple life, waiting his son to come of age to learn the noodle recipe, or at least have the noodle dream to kind of prepare him to know how to just believe in your craft enough that it becomes special. Um, and I one of the small details that we didn't go over that I really liked is he's very happy to get his son back at the end of the film, even temporarily when they're all running away together. He's very happy to have his son back, and he also recognizes that his son is really, really depressed and tries to cheer him up at least a little bit with sharing the secret recipe and just kind of bring him back into their old way of life because that's what he wants to ground him in. So he's a very caring, kind, loving father. He's not the greatest, but which parent ever gets it perfect unless they die at the beginning of the film? Um, so yeah, very very well characterized, and yeah, don't have much more to say on him. But that now we move to the big three. I'm gonna go to Tai Lung first. Uh, he's not easily intimidated, obviously, even when he's chained up. He's quick on his feet, highly skilled, thinks on the fly. He's very strong, can easily intimidate others. He wanted the Dragon Scroll in previous history with flashbacks, but he just charges right in at that time. Like he's very, very blunt. He's very, very aggressive. It's part of his personality to just go right for the throat whenever he's fighting with opponents. Um, he probably knows the five at least a little bit. If not, he knows of them. He's skilled enough to overcome the prison, the Furious Five, and he straight up ignores all the civilians because he had his reign of terror in the flashback, and obviously at this point he's much more focused. He has had time to kind of settle his mind a little bit, so Shifu is at the forefront of it. He was trained to be the best until his bones cracked. Shifu trained to be the Dragon Warrior, essentially, and well, he puts it himself. You know what Shifu did to him in the film. Uh, One of the things I do like at the end of the fight is he starts beating himself at the end because Shifu is using Tai Lung's skills against him, and he doesn't understand the secret of the Dragon Scroll even when he's told its importance, which is kind of the epitome of what Tai Lung is stuck in. Tai Lung doesn't realize that the most important didn't realize even when he was told that the secret ingredient is the person itself, which is explicitly characterizes Tai Lung as just not being ready to be the Dragon Warrior as another facet of that. And his relationship with Shifu is, I think, one of the strongest dynamics of the film. That's just going to repeat what the others two said, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Shifu is also very skilled, and it's a harsh teacher. Being is established very early on. He's impatient. He's not centered, and he's afraid of Tai Lung. So all of this is kind of set up for him not being at peace. He's very annoyed with Po and at Po at first. He tries to intimidate Po into leaving. Pretty much lets Po get beat up all day. Throws Po down the fucking stairs. But he's also capable of love with the story we see in Tai Lung. It's just been a very long time because he's had to harden his heart because of that whole experience. Um, he mourns the loss of Uguay and eventually starts to taking on the mentor role more properly and realizes, and he's also clever enough to realize the best way to train Poe after observing him for long enough in the food cabinet area, because he is the greatest kung fu teacher in all of China. He trained the Furious Five, so eventually, of course, he has to figure out a way to train him. So he lives up to that reputation. Um, but Shifu, as Viper said, he's not really one to smile, and he does smile when Poe completes his training and catches the dumpling. There's a smile on Shifu's face, showing that he's growing as well, and he's willing to sacrifice himself to slow the enemy down. He's respectful of tradition only up to a point, in the sense that he's not willing to look at the dragon skull until he's certain that nothing's there, because even he can't, throw away that curiosity. And he apologizes to Tai Lung, apologizes for his role in creating Tai Lung to Tai Lung, which I think is one of the strongest scenes in the film. And he was prideful to a fault. All this mixed is into one of the strongest characters in the film. Shifu is probably highly regarded as one of the greatest mentors in animated movies at this point, and I am pretty much in agreement with that. Um, that leaves uh, the main character of the story, the other main character, Poe. Uh, I pretty much said at the beginning what dreams do, what the dream at the beginning does. It pretty much epitomizes all of what he's chasing after. He wants to be cool, wants to be respected, wants to be awesome, wants to have cool friends, wants to know kung fu, and he achieves most of that by the end of the film. Um, in a very, very kind of efficient manner. Uh, he's nerdy to the point of weirding other people out. He's struggles with stares, knows the history of kung fu, is shown to be have ingenuity with when trying to find means of getting over the wall, except for climbing the tree. And uh, all that shows up again when he's fighting Tai Lung. That quick thinking, that quick ingenuity. I know he brought it, Crimson views the almond cookie as a problem. I don't necessarily have it as a problem. I just viewed that as a showcase of skills during the fight. Um, he eats when he's upset, which is kind of important to how Shifu unlocks his skill set. Uh, he exaggerates stories to the fight to try and be cool. Likes to diffuse tension when it's hurled at him by cracking a joke. Uh, he ultimately is very smart, despite all that, and he's very caring. He worries over Shifu, even though that damages the five at the end. And I think the Wuxi finger hold is the epitome of him being smart enough to figure things out on his own. As much of a cool callback as it is, and a simplistic spell or whatever superpower you want to attribute to that as part of kung fu. But Poe comes off as a very, very likable, optimistic, and realistically optimistic, because he's not willing he's willing to admit when he's afraid and run away when things are not looking grim. But he comes off as a very likable protagonist. Objectively, I am also at a 9 for Kung Fu Panda. Subjectively, I love this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm kind of happy I picked it for the pod. Uh, but man, there's just a lot for me to like here. There's just a feast in terms of writing, animation, character motivation, themes that I can extrapolate and pull out. It's just a feast, and I always cherish movies that give me that. So my subjective is also a 9.
Lots of high numbers.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
with yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say something.
yeah, you know me. I'm always last one to throw in something. There was something I was going to bring up earlier, having read all my notes during your guys' reviews. I do like how the Furious Five are competent, specifically towards the Tai Lung fight at the bridge. They didn't make them worse, so Tai Lung looked better. They were all good. he was just better.
Yeah,
I really like how they portrayed it.
me too. You don't have to shockingly, you don't have to demean characters to prop other ones up. That is something that
Yeah.
a lot of writers seem to have forgotten these days.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, with that, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
Think so.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for listening, audience, whether it be Anchor, Spotify, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Samsung, and iHeartRadio. And if you're on our visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. Tell us how ridiculous it was that we spent half an hour talking about an almond cookie. And as always, I have been a geeky writer,
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
and we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.